could be, and Putin easily could try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter. It could be one of the small countries of Baltic states.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Here we go, Budget Day. A very good morning to you, wherever you're watching. The time, 6 o'clock on the dot, Wednesday, the 6th of March.
And this is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Budget Day finally here as Jeremy Hunt looks to win over you as a voter. As speculation mounts about when the Prime Minister might actually call the general election.
Yes, Jeremy Hunt has dotted the I's and crossed the T's on the spring budget, but will it be enough to win back disillusioned voters? Find out more with me very soon.
Big wins for Donald Trump and Joe Biden in their Super Tuesday election contests, paving the way for a 2020 election rematch.
Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
Missing royals, unexplained illness, and now Big Brother. Do the royals have a right to privacy, or should they be more open? We're going to be talking to the royal historian Hugo Vickers about just that after 7 o'clock this morning.
And in the sport today, in the Champions League, Bayern Munich come good, and Harry Kane scores 2 more goals against Lazio. Erling Haaland's very happy at Man City for now, and England won't bid to host the World Cup for at least another 20 years.
West is best for sunshine today, and that's where we'll see the top temperatures. Further east, a lot of cloud and on the chilly side. Join me later for a full weather forecast.
Well, here we go. Budget Day, the big day finally here. Last throw of the dice for the Chancellor as he's set to deliver the spring budget, and that is going to happen later today.
On the agenda, well, a 2p cut in national insurance, possible tax cuts, fuel duty frozen, and also possible changes to non-dom status.
It is an election year. The Chancellor alluded to this over the weekend. Will any budget today be enough to sway your vote and turn things around for the Conservatives? We're now joined by GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Olivia, good morning. Big day for Hunt.
Morning, absolutely. It is a huge day for Jeremy Hunt. It sounds very much as though he's decided to take 2p off national insurance. Now, that's a pretty radical move. It will save the average worker about £450, £900 when you take into account the 2p that was taken off national insurance in November. But it's not as radical as quite a lot of backbench Conservative MPs were hoping. They were hoping that Jeremy Hunt would change income tax, would take 1p off income tax. Income tax affects pensioners as well, so they they would have benefited from that. But national insurance only benefits those in work. A national insurance cut very much fits with Jeremy Hunt's ethos, fits about what he's about as Chancellor, which is getting back into work, making work pay. But of course, we know that the pensioner vote is very reliable. Pensioners mostly turn out to vote. And so anything which could help them might give the Conservatives a bit more of a boost in the polls than what Jeremy Hunt is doing instead. Hunt has decided against an income tax rate, partly because it's so expensive and partly because he believes that it would be inflationary. How is he going to pay for this cut in national insurance? Well, one thing which you mentioned in your introduction there is changing the rules around non-dom status. Now, that would take the wind out of Labour's sails. Labour has promised that a lot of its spending pledges will be paid for by changing non-dom status. If the Tories get in there first and get it done before Labour take office, that would be pretty awkward for Keir Starmer. Whether that will be enough to actually raise the money that needed to cut national insurance remains to be seen. But another measure which Jeremy Hunt is considering to pay for this cut is cutting public spending by 25p in the pound. So that would be cutting down the size of the civil service, something which lots of Conservative MPs have talked about. But of course, it would leave Jeremy Hunt open to accusations of austerity, which we know don't play well with the public. Lots of Conservative MPs are also saying, well, hang on a minute, you cut national insurance by 2p back in November and it didn't create a poll boost then. Why would it be any different this time round? Jeremy Hunt will have to answer that question this afternoon.
Lots of big questions there, Olivia. Thank you very much indeed. And we've got plenty of questions. We want to get answers from you. We want more questions from you as well. gbviews@gbnews.com. Get in touch with us. Tell us what you want from this budget, what you expect from this budget, what you need from this budget.
Well, we're joined now by Chief Economist Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Price. Good to see you this morning, Vicky Price. So from what we're hearing from Olivia there, nothing too radical expected in this budget today. But we do need to remember the context of all of this, and that is that headroom is looking very, very tight, isn't it, for the government to do anything radical?
Well, yes, I think the thing to remember is that the headroom is calculated in relation to where we might be in 5 years' time and whether the Chancellor is able to claim that he can be meeting his fiscal rules by reducing the debt-to-GDP ratio. You can do all sorts of things in between, of course. You can borrow an awful lot more in the next 4 years and then suddenly start cutting your spending in year 5. So the way in which the spending cuts that Olivia mentioned, which are likely to be happening for loads of departments, are phased over the next few years is going to be important. And I think we as economists are going to look at what the OBR is saying on that quite carefully. And in some ways, of course, the real worry is that if he's going to be financing or funding any tax cuts that we already have heard about by mainly reducing spending, that will mean huge cuts in some of those unprotected departments outside the National Health Service and education, for example, and possibly now, of course, defence. Given the geopolitical environment we're in, loads of other departments will see some real cuts, and we already know what's going on with local authority funding, and more of those bad news, I think, are going to be coming out of the next few months about local authorities not being able to meet a lot of their obligations, really.
Yeah, that's why it just sort of doesn't seem to hang well. A lot of people, yes, of course, they'll want more money in their pocket, but people do understand that public spending has gone to pot and we need to do something for society in general because our society does not look well. Our schools are falling down, the doctor strikes, the hospital situation, the potholes in the roads. I could go on and on and on. And then when we hear things, oh, we'll cut public spending. You know, Vicky, are people really in the mood to cut public spending?
Not really. When you ask anyone, and there have been opinion polls on that, of course, which have reinforced it, what are they really looking forward to is not necessarily a 2p cut in the national insurance contributions rate that they pay. Although, of course, they are worried about their pockets and how much money there is there, because remember, we've had years now of rapid inflation. We had very high interest rates. And, of course, the tax take has been going up. So even with a cut in national insurance contributions, yes, it will offset some of the increases that would have taken place otherwise for people at work. because of the stealth taxes, in other words, the freezing of personal allowances. But if you look ahead, the tax take is likely to continue to rise for the Chancellor. So this is what allows him to have a bit of headroom to begin with. And that is the headroom he now is hoping to give back, because this is an election year. So in some ways, there's political pressure for him to reduce those taxes. It's not so much that people are really clamoring for it. It is that within the Conservative Party, if he doesn't, then I think he'll be in trouble. And we've seen so many factions already within the Conservative Party becoming a little bit more right-wing, if you like, and really pushing for this government, as it goes to elections, to be seen seriously as a tax-cutting government rather than a tax-raising one.
Well, we're going to hear more from Vicky throughout the whole programme this morning. For the moment, Vicky, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there. Folks, if it's got you thinking, particularly if you're a pensioner and you're saying, what's in all of this for me? Because it's not doing national insurance isn't going to affect you. Do you feel affronted by that? Let us know. So we're talking about the budget, what's expected from it. We're also talking about the US and the primaries there and what's happening.
Yes, because it's been one of the biggest days in the US election calendar, Super Tuesday. Voters across 15 states and 1 US territory headed to the polls to select their preferred presidential candidate.
Right. Joe Biden, a big night for him, big night for Donald Trump. A rematch of last time around for those two is now looking more likely again.
Well, joining us now to explain what's happened overnight is GB News reporter Ray Addison and former advisor to the Bank of England, Dr. Roger Gewolb. Ray, to you first. Talk us through Super Tuesday. Why is it so important?
Well, this was a real spread of the United States. So it was a real indication of both red and blue states across north, south, east and west, all across the US. So this was a real indication of how people might end up voting. And of course, Donald Trump doing extremely well in every single state, apart from Vermont, which was won by Nikki Haley. So he's won all the others. Utah's still counting at the moment. Nikki Haley winning Vermont, but only by the smallest of fractions. And so this, people are just expecting her to sort of step down from this now.
Well, when is she going to step down then?
Well, it was interesting because if we saw the speech there from Donald Trump, that was at Mar-a-Lago. There was 3 open bars, huge crowd, all the dignitaries there, all the family was there, and he made that speech. Nikki Haley, no watch party at all. She was at home as the results came in.
She wasn't expecting to win, was she?
Well, no, but you would think that she would. We were expecting a speech from her. We've had a statement calling for unity within the party and saying that Donald Trump doesn't provide unity. But people are saying, well, how long can she go on? She's booked no travel plans. We know that she's losing donors, and so people are saying it could just be a matter of time.
But will she still be his running mate, do you think? Because that's what some of the papers are suggesting, which is actually quite unbelievable considering the criticism that the two have had for each other in recent weeks.
Really interesting. We heard from one of Donald Trump's senior advisors tonight. He was saying actually the race for VP is not narrowing, it's widening, and so the number of potential candidates is actually increasing. I think there's a lot of true sort of red Republicans would find it very hard for Nikki Haley to become Donald Trump's running mate, because especially since in recent weeks she's increased her rhetoric against him, pointing out his age, likening some of his slip-ups to Joe Biden's slip-ups, and sort of separating herself ever further from him. And I think people would find that quite difficult.
Right, let's get Roger Gewolb's views on all of this. And Roger, the thing that just amazes me is, look, momentum is with Trump. It's obviously with Trump. He's obviously going to get the nomination. Biden, we're not hearing much about him. How on earth is he even considering running again when we look at how infirm this man looks?
Yeah, I mean, this is a question on everybody's mind, particularly his supporters but the Democratic National Committee just hangs in there. I've always said that old Joe is Barack Obama's 3rd term, and Obama wants a 4th term, and they're just going to keep him in place. I mean, in North Carolina, the Dems wouldn't even let the other candidates on the ballot. So, but yes, it's true. I mean, you're stuck, as one wag said the other day, with a race between a man who called Vladimir Putin a genius, and another man who called Abraham Lincoln young man.
Wow.
So,
but then, Roger, what is it? What is it that the public see, despite all the associated bad news that is around Donald Trump? He's coming through strong and hard here. This man just dodders around the place that we're looking at here as well. Why is no one tapping him in the shoulder and say, "Hey, Joe, let's go and sit down in the corner there. That's enough of that"?
Well, I'm sure they have, but his answer has obviously been no. The process to make him leave forcibly is very complicated, requires both houses of government to have, I believe, 2/3 votes or 75% votes. I can't remember. Forgive me. But you can't force him out if he doesn't want to go. And he's committed to stay there.
Is he a winner, Roger?
I think it might be close. I think it might be close at the end of the day. It depends on what Nikki Haley's voters and backers do. I think she's probably done all right. I think her billionaire backers, who are probably shutting their checkbooks now, are saying, "Nikki, you know, you've done really well, girl, because you're all set up for next time."
Yeah, she's set up for 2028.
And she may be the vice president. I mean, the field is widening. I've always been betting on Tim Scott because a black gentleman would be very useful politically, as a woman would. And he's certainly been very loyal. I would disregard all the slanging between them in recent weeks. That's just American politics. That, you know, British politics is tough too, but America's different. But nobody worries about that stuff. That doesn't count.
But who would Trump be looking for as a vice president? Someone he can manipulate, someone he can just tell what to do, or someone he's actually seriously going to listen to?
Trump is a man who gets things done. He's not a politician. What you see is what you get. I think he would want somebody who is able to perform when delegated to.
And how do you think he's feeling? Because you know Donald Trump, don't you, personally? How do you think he's feeling now? Because he's onto a winner last night, dominating performance on Super Tuesday, but he's still facing all these indictments, isn't he? So for him, is that in the rearview mirror, or are they still a roadblock to come?
I think they're in the side mirror and also the rear view mirror. These are, again, American tactics. You know, in Britain here, when we get sued, and especially if we get criminally charged, you know, oh my goodness, this is a deadly serious thing. But in the States, when you're big and you're powerful and you have an argument, the first thing you do is throw 10 lawyers at the people. So lawsuits are not quite the stigma there that they are here. And Ellie, of course, these are criminal indictments, and just as in a British court, they need to be proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And I personally think there's enough evidence floating around about questions over the previous election that it would be hard to find a jury that could convict him beyond a reasonable doubt other than a big city left ultra-liberal jury that just wants Trump blood.
OK. Well, look, just in conclusion, Ray, what have you heard there that whether it's vice presidency or the result of the next election or whatever that you'd like to comment on?
Well, in terms of the polls that we saw across all, these 15 states, the biggest issues for people as they cast their votes was immigration and the economy. And although, President Biden is very keen to say that the economy is flourishing, a lot of people are not feeling that in their pockets. It's that cost of living issue that we're seeing here and all over the world. And so unless Joe Biden can convince people that actually they do have more money than they would have had under Trump, then he's going to really struggle in November. And, of course, immigration, we're seeing hundreds of thousands of people coming across that southern border. OK, right. Speak again later, gentlemen. Thank you both very much indeed. At the moment, your views, very welcome. What do you think, whether it's on the budget, whether it's on the American primaries or any future election in America in November? Let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Now, at 17 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom. And Lord Justice Eddis, the senior presiding judge for England and Wales, is set to target 181 of the oldest rape cases by the end of July. Cases which involve both adult and child alleged victims, as well as some retrials, have each been at a Crown Court since 2021.
Junior doctors across Northern Ireland are to take part in the first ever industrial action over pay. It's a 24-hour walkout. It'll begin at 8 o'clock this morning, and that'll affect hospitals and GP surgeries. Robin Swan's the health minister there, and he's warned that the disruption caused will be significant and will lead to thousands of missed appointments.
The actress Dame Helen Mirren has been recreated in Barbie form, complete with her Oscar. The one-of-a-kind doll shows her in the outfit she wore on the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival last year. Dame Helen has said she is blown away by her Barbie and takes it as a huge compliment.
OK, so Jeremy Hunt's expected to introduce a new tax on vapes during his budget this afternoon. So if you are a smoker, that will affect you. It's anticipated that the new duty will be imposed on the liquid in vapes, with higher tax rates for products with more nicotine.
Well, our national reporter Theo Gicomba has been assessing what impact this will have on the industry and on young people.
The number of children vaping is increasing at an alarming rate. Recent government figures show 9% of 11 to 15-year-olds are now using vapes. By introducing a new levy, the Chancellor hopes to make the habit unaffordable for children. Vape store manager Kevan Purnell argues it will penalise small businesses.
He's put it into our hands of trying to not put our prices up, but we're going to have to maintain that gap that's going to be coming into place. And we don't want to, because we don't want to lose our customers. Our customers are who have what's made us over the 10 years. It's a very fine balancing act. To have customers walk away and go to bigger corporate businesses that can afford that difference, it's going to hurt us big time.
Hopefully this will help you as parents, help you as teachers.
The government has set itself an ambitious target of creating the first smoke-free generation. Bedford Academy head teacher Chris Della says the government's plan could work in addition to the measures they are already implementing in their school.
Yeah, I think any type of deterrent for young children to try and encourage them to make good choices about any form of vaping, nicotine consumption is a positive thing. I'd certainly say it's escalated in the last couple of years. We wouldn't say we have major problems with it here, but we've had incidents where we've had to enforce pretty straight sanctions with students. On occasion, there's been suspensions that have taken place.
Meanwhile, the director of the leading vaping trade association, John Dunn, says it's a bad move that will unfairly target ex-smokers for doing something that's healthier than smoking.
We find that really strange from a government that is already committed to giving away a free 1 million free vapes to those in need. Now, when you consider that in the UK, the most prevalent areas for smoking are those lowest income areas. So the government's solution to get more people off cigarettes is to raise taxes on vaping. Doesn't make sense to me.
It's estimated that if the tax is implemented, it could raise £500 million a year for the government coffers. However, industry experts warn it could fuel an unregulated black market for vapes. Theo Gicomba, GB News.
Well, there you go. If you're a vape smoker, that could be affecting you today. I mean, I'm not a vape smoker. What do I know?
No, neither am I.
What I do know is the amount of shops and outlets that there are. Have you noticed how many more there are?
Yeah.
They just pop up absolutely everywhere.
Well, they're everywhere, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they look so enticing as well, which I think is half the problem. They smell good, and they're all lovely colours as well. So something needs to be done. Perhaps this is the way to tackle it. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
OK. The weather situation today, what's happening with us? I know it's supposed to be spring, but it just feels like winter every day. Alex Deaking, morning.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and 1 or 2 showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. 1 or 2 showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine, and that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in 1 or 2 places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast. As we go through this evening, I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. We'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales, could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
Thanks, Alex. Now, it's time for the latest Great British Giveaway and your chance to win £12,345 in cash. Do you know why they've done that?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yes, very good, very clever.
Yeah.
So it's that cash and a whole host of seasonal treats. It is a lot, and here's how it could all be yours.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Oh, so many comments from you that you want to see in the budget that would make a difference to you. Mark says, here's some of the things I'd like to hear. Cancel the folly of net zero, save trillions, not billions. Cancel the folly of HS2 entirely and save billions. Sadie says, stop funding the Ukraine war, stop foreign aid, stop immigration, send 1 million illegal immigrants home, secure the borders, stop funding woke workshops. You get the idea with this one here. But basically, people are saying there's just too much money spent on things that are not important to you and don't make a difference to your life. But they do make a difference because they make less money available for things that should happen. I mean, I think graffiti, far too much of it. Litter, far too much of it. Holes in roads, just absolutely disgraceful. I think if the place looks rubbish, we all feel rubbish. I think if the place looks nice, that's money well invested, I think.
So local councils and local spending might be important to you. Do let us know what you think. What would you like to see in the budget today? gbviews@gbnews.com.
I'd like to see a big grant for more sports coverage with Paul Coyte.
I think that's a fair comment. Am I looking rubbish, by the way? I'm trying to make an effort today. That's good.
Lovely.
Are you sure?
Whose jacket is that?
That's just a new one. What do you think?
Very nice.
It's Rupert. It's kind of like the Rupert look. What do you think?
It's very nice.
Why do I not believe you? Anyway, talk about money being spent. There's not going to be any money spent on a bid for the World Cup coming to this country for at least another 20 years, which would be 80 years since the last time we hosted it. And I don't think that's very good. We'll speak more about it in a second.
Well, we're going to talk about that next as to why that is after this short break.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel. All over the back pages today, stories on
Erling Haaland.
Erling Haaland, yeah. Which I think is unfortunate. I mean, he's been forced to answer questions, would you leave City? He isn't saying he wants to leave City at all.
You're right.
Yes.
That's all I got to say about it. It's nonsense. It's ridiculous. Everybody looks for the story. We know what it's like.
Yeah.
Sport and everything else, and it's, well, what are you going to do? What's the future? Because Manchester City are playing in the Champions League, and they're playing... It seems to be we're talking about Copenhagen every other week, doesn't it? It's always Copenhagen. But it's Copenhagen, wonderful Copenhagen. But Erling Haaland then was asked about his future, and this is what he said. Look, have a look, listen to this, and see if you can find anything bad about this.
I'm really happy, especially with the people that I'm surrounded with, the manager, the directors, the board. They are a group of amazing people, and I'm really happy. If I say this now, it's probably going to be a massive headline tomorrow. You never know what the future brings. But again, I'm happy, and you can write this, but you can also have to write everything I said right before. I'm happy.
How many times did he say, I'm happy to be here? I'm happy. You never know what the future's going to bring, so everybody's thinking, what the future brings, it means he's going to leave. It's crazy.
Are you happy?
I'm ridiculously happy. But you know what, Eamonn? Well, you never know what the future brings. But anyway, that's it. And he's in the future. He's 23 years old. In the future, probably is going to play at Real Madrid. Yes. But there's no plans at the moment. No big deal. As you were, he's happy at Manchester City.
Talking about plans, right, before the break, we were talking about the World Cup and the FA saying we're certainly not going to bid for it for the next...
20 years.
Oof. Why?
Well, this is sport. This is UK sport that are saying this, and they're saying this is what we see as the future. There's no plans as far as the World Cup is concerned, or should I say the Men's World Cup? We've got to look at the Men's World Cup now. Last time was, of course, in 1966. So if it's another 20 years, that's going to be 80 years since we hosted a World Cup, which I think is a disgrace. I think it's crazy. You've got America that would have done it twice, Germany, Italy, every other major nation in football would have hosted at least twice, but never for us.
It's not as if we couldn't do it. I mean, they're just, first-class stadiums absolutely everywhere all around the country.
Well, the problems we've had before is FIFA and all the dodgy deals that have gone on there. Qatar, Russia. We know what's been going on there. Now things supposedly are cleaned up. There's supposed to be a fair bidding process, and we didn't do very well in the bidding because we had to bid against them before. But also it's the future that it's the Deputy of UK Sport, Simon Morton, says the Women's World Cup is the biggest sporting event this country has never hosted, which is all very well, but let's be honest...
I can't do both of them.
Well, exactly. Why don't you do both? And the Women's World Cup has only been huge probably for the last 2 World Cups because it's a growing sport. So you can't go, well, we've never hosted it, something we've always wanted to do. They're also said they're going to focus on UK athletics, on the World Athletics Championship, which happened about 4 or 5 years ago here, which was great, and exactly, so why can't we do both? The Solheim Cup in golf, the Ryder Cup, which... it's been hosted here many, many times. So I don't really see what the problem with the World Cup. I think it's something we should do.
I didn't realise somewhere around the world there are people sitting and they count up, oh, they've had a top golf tournament, or they've had a top tennis tournament, or they've had... I thought all those things were just separate to do with those bodies.
So did I. Yeah, but UK Sport are looking at this and thinking, right, and when they're talking about the Women's World Cup, they're saying, well, hopefully sometime in the 2030s. So it just seems crazy, or more than likely, that there would never be a World Cup in my lifetime, because I was born the year after the World Cup was hosted, and the way things are going, I'm never going to see one here.
No, we think all that's rubbish then. We don't like that.
Yeah,
we don't like that.
let's have it here.
Do we like this? Here is what's called a weird cycling helmet.
Well...
OK, so this is for protection, but it's also for what?
Well, let me describe first before we... Oh, look, we've seen it. Look, the punchline has appeared already. We've got to wait. It's all about for safety... aerodynamism, it needs to look good, and there it is.
Does he have a readout within that, a digital readout or whatever? It looks as if... I mean, is that pure...
You can get Netflix on that, yeah.
Yeah, it looks as if he's probably got a home cinema in there.
Well, the thing is, it's quite a tiring thing when you're cycling for hours on end, so you need somebody to watch. But it is... I mean, look at this. They're getting more and more out there. It has a protruding leading edge, Eamonn early, and wide wings at the rear. Which I do, actually, also.
It does make sense, though, doesn't it, in terms of its shape? You can see why that would make you go a bit faster.
Because we're talking...
Streamline.
Yeah, it's for sprinting, and we're talking thousandths of a second that are going to make a difference. So they're carefully designed. So it's all... Because there's those other sprinting ones with there's a great big point at the back. But that's it. It's all about speed. All about speed.
OK.
But it looks great too, don't you think?
Very good. Well, you'll be back looking great again at 7:20.
I may well.
Thank you very much indeed, my friend. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, do stay with us. Coming up, we're going to be looking at the front stories and the biggest stories of the day as well in Making the News with Fraser Myers and Anna Mikhailova. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Well, to cut a very long story short, I was the chaplain in a school, and a pupil asked me to preach on how come they were told they had to accept the LGBT stuff in a Christian school. I thought that was a fair question. So I said, ultimately, no, you don't have to accept anybody else's ideas. You make up your own minds. And so on topics like the marriage being between a man and a woman, biological sex being real, gender identity not making perfect sense, therefore can't be entirely true. I said, you may adopt the church's position on that and respect the people you disagree with, but you make up your own mind, for which, as you say, I was reported to Prevent, the anti-terror watchdog, secular safeguarding authorities, the Teaching Regulation Agency, Disclosure and Barring Service, all of whom eventually cleared me, but I lost my job at the school, and that's why there's legal action ongoing.
It's an incredibly powerful sermon, to be fair. What do you make of Justin Welby in his current role? I've obviously rattled off quite a few things there. I mean, you've had personal experience of feeling quite abandoned. What's your view on his position?
Well, he's doing a very difficult job, in fairness to him. My personal view is perhaps he's not doing the best job of it. I'll be diplomatic about it. In a sense, I'm on the wrong side of things as far as he's concerned, I guess. Not a word of support, not a whisper from anyone in the Church of England's hierarchy for someone simply saying, you may accept the Church of England's own teaching. And And I can't quite see how he can square that in his own head, but he would have to answer to that himself, I guess.
I mean, the irony is that, though this is obviously through no fault of your own, the Church of England has recently baptised people who have gone on to not just be referred to prevent, but actually commit acts of terrorism. Meanwhile, you were referred to prevent for essentially teaching.
New Sundays from 6 p.m. The Neil Oliver Show.
It's absolutely vital that people are given the opportunity to take part in the debate, to say the things that matter to them, to be challenged. A country is only really a shared dream. As long as enough people have a shared idea of what it is, then that country exists. What GB News does is give voices somewhere they can be heard.
The Neil Oliver Show. Sundays from 6 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. The time is 6:38. Let's take a look at some of your newspaper front pages, shall we now? And the Express leads with Jeremy Hunt's tax cuts, which are expected to put £900 into workers' pockets.
Daily Mail leads with 5 SAS soldiers facing possible murder charges over the death of a suspected jihadist in Syria.
Hunt defies public services alarm with pre-election budget tax cuts. That's the headline on the front of The Guardian.
Telegraph reports on the 2p national insurance cut, saying this could spark an early election. Well, there's more to that. We've got reaction from you, which I'm going to read out very shortly. Here's the Telegraph.
Yes, it leads with Jeremy Hunt's attempts to win over voters with a 2p cut in national insurance.
OK, on that, Linda says, to say I'm furious is an understatement. Hunt cut national insurance in the last budget, mini-budget, and to repeat that is a slap in the face for us pensioners. He says he wants to help working taxpayers. Well, I worked for 46 years straight, and though retired now, I'm still paying tax. So I do have to say that if you are a pensioner, you're sitting saying, "Oi, mate, what are you doing for me?" Right, so joining us to go through the papers now in the studio, Deputy Editor of Spiked and Deputy Political Editor of The Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikhailova. The Deputy Editor of Spiked, of course, is Fraser Myers, we should say. Guys, very good seeing you. And Fraser, just on that national insurance and tax cut today, what are you making with the 2p cut, which is being widely touted for national insurance?
Yes, so this is Jeremy Hunt's big giveaway in the budget. 2p cut, we should remind people that this is the same amount that was cut in national insurance at the last autumn statement. So that came in January. So if you don't feel richer since December, you're probably not going to feel that much richer come April when this national insurance cut comes in.
Yeah, and they're doing this thing where they're saying, oh, he's going to give you 900 quid off. No, he didn't. In November, December, you got 450. You're getting another 450. 450 didn't make a darn bit of difference to anybody's life last time around, and it's not going to make a darn bit of difference to anybody's life this time around, I would suggest.
Absolutely right, because what are the other things that are going on? Actually, even as this tax is going down, the broader tax burden is still going up. It's still the highest that it's been since the Second World War. And you've got inflation as well. You know, inflation is going down. It's on trend to reach 2%. But you haven't lost the money, or you're not getting back the money that you lost in the past year. You know, it doesn't mean that prices will go down again. It just means that they are rising at a slower rate. So, you know, the big questions this budget. Two big questions. Is it going to save the economy? Is it going to turn around Britain's growth fortunes? No, it isn't. And is it going to save the Tory party ahead of the next election? I don't think so either.
Let's bring in the political brain now of Anna Mikhailova on this.
I might have a political brain. I don't have any more insights into the budget. I do think surely there's going to be something else. I mean, I just don't believe that this is it, that there's going to be national insurance.
You know, I'm like you. I'm smiling and I'm saying, are they really that stupid?
Yeah, exactly.
This is it.
Well, and partly because Jeremy Hunt has literally spent the last few weeks meeting Conservative MPs and telling him, yes, I'm aware that the national insurance cut last time round didn't make a darn bit of difference for our polling. So he's aware of that. And, of course, they've got huge constraints for spending. But anyway, let's see until later today.
What do you predict could come out of the hat, then?
I mean, the thing that they've been desperate to bring out of the hat is some kind of income tax cut. That's the thing that both Number 10 and Hunt, to an extent, has been pushing for, particularly Number 10 and, of course, their party, because they saw that with national insurance, it's one of these funny taxes that it does make a difference to people's pockets, but for some reason, people don't really notice it. That's why, traditionally, it's been a popular one to raise. It's been a great one to just sneakily, slightly up every time.
Yeah. But the fiscal headroom now is so limited. I mean, will they be able to do that with income tax? Because that's what so many people want. That's what all of our emails are saying.
It's incredibly limited. They have been very much putting that out. There are still people in the Conservative Party that hope that this is just expectation management. Because, let's put it this way, if there is nothing else in the budget, then the pressure is really going to be on Rishi Sunak. And there's going to be a very, very unhappy party to deal with.
Anna and Fraser, what's your instinct re an election? Do you think it's a May one or November? What do you think, Fraser?
Look, I think I could completely understand why Rishi Sunak would want to just stay on for as long as possible and cling on while he can, just because the polling is so bad. You know, he might want to wait for things to turn around. I can't see them turning around. But there are some things that point to a May election. So let's see what happens in this budget. This is the last set-piece opportunity for the Tories to make a splash on the economy. So maybe there will be...
Or is it?
Or is it?
Or are they going to have a sneaky autumn statement? And this is the thing. And one of the main arguments, certainly from Labour, Labour strategists, when they've looked at this and said and been so convinced that it's going to be a May election, one of their main arguments was, we assume there's going to be an income tax giveaway in the budget. That's too expensive to just throw away and therefore not go to the polls straight away. Therefore, it's an early election. Now, if we're not seeing an income tax cut, then that argument falls away. And my instinct is that the Prime Minister will want to cling on as long as possible to see those green shoots of recovery that he has been hoping for so much. So that looks like a Bank of England rate cut, for example. But again, the pressure might be so tough on him after this that he might have to move.
The other thing to add that's not related to the budget is we're also expecting, the Rwanda bill to have been wrapped up in the next couple of weeks.
There's always one that mentions Rwanda.
I know. I mean, I think in the Prime Minister's head, I don't think the public cares that much about this, by the way, but I think in the Prime Minister's brain, he thinks, we see the first flights to Rwanda, people will be convinced we've sorted the immigration issue. Obviously, they haven't. And then that could lead them to go to the polls as well. So that's another factor that might be playing in, especially because, things, OK, the Prime Minister can wait around to see if things get better on the economy. They can always get worse. We're going to come out of this technical recession. That's a product of waiting around. Immigration things could always get worse. There tends to be more small boats in the summer. So, do they want to get ahead of that?
But they won't get a flight off the ground before May, will they, surely?
No, but I think that Rishi Sunak would like to have that in the middle of the election campaign. Whether that'll make a difference or not, I don't know.
What we hope can't get worse, won't get worse, is violence against women. And Anna, this is front page of the Telegraph today. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner is saying that it's at such a bad level that it should be treated as a national security threat.
Yes, so Mark Rowley's, off the back of further horrific revelations about the murder of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer, he has come out and given this speech saying that violence against women is so bad we should treat it as we do organised crime and terrorism. And his argument there, of course, is that he needs some more resources to do that. Now, I mean, I read that this morning, and I don't really understand why they can't just treat it badly on its own anyway. Why does it have to be put on a par with terrorism? Surely, I mean, it sort of points to slightly wrong attitude, I think, to start with. If you suddenly have to say, it's as bad as terrorism, just treat it like what it is already.
It does sound like a bit of almost a gimmick, a little bit, because, I think... we should agree that it is as evil as those things, but surely it works in a different way. Violence against women is not planned or organised in the same way that terrorism is. So surely the approach is just surely not comparable. Do the police need more resources to tackle it? Certainly.
And I think most people would be delighted if the police just stopped making awful unforced errors when it comes to, for example, storing evidence in rape cases. It doesn't need to suddenly elevate it to organised crime and make it sound like a big gimmick, like you say.
Yeah. Do you know, when we use the terms like organised crime and make it a national security threat, I agree with you. I think what is wrong with whether it's Fraser or me, you know, say we had an opinion or a view that was out of kilter here, that you should be saying to us directly, look, Fraser, look, Eamonn, catch yourself on. This is absolutely unbearable. And, you know, having sons that I do, I like to think they are respectful to women and that they have the right values towards it. And I think, Fraser, the whole idea that well, it's somehow different. It's a woman, you can slap her around, you can be abusive to her verbally or physically if you want. So, well, it's no big deal, or maybe we better do something about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd hope that the overwhelming majority of people don't have that kind of attitude. But
why does it happen?
I mean, I don't know, it's one of the great mysteries of our time.
Why do men treat other men the way they treat women?
Presumably these men don't, because they're cowards and they think women are weaker.
What do you think, Anna?
No, it's a big topic for 6 a.m. The root of male violence against women.
Is your child a boy or a girl?
A girl.
A girl, yeah. But do you think that, you know, if you had a male child, that you would deliberately take it upon yourself to say, no, when it comes to treating women, this is what you should do?
I think people do. I think most parents are very, very mindful of this. And I actually think, you know, I don't know how it is with your sons, but I actually, growing up as a boy right now is actually quite difficult because you are navigating so many things. And most people are really, really mindful and schools are good at educating. But sadly, first of all, there's always going to be evil in the world. And secondly, we do need to do more, I'm sure.
Fraser, let's take a look at the front of the Mail, shall we? And this is 5 serving SAS soldiers facing possible murder charges.
Yeah, so these are several SAS soldiers. They're involved in a mission. They essentially are accused of murder because they should have, or some people are saying they should have arrested someone and instead they shot at them. Now, in their defence, they say that they believe that this person had a suicide vest on, and a suicide vest was indeed recovered in the location that they went to raid, even if it wasn't on this person. Now, you know, there's it's kind of a complicated story. On the one hand, you know, it's really important that soldiers are held to very high standards, that they're not seen to be breaking the law, that they cannot commit war crimes. But, you know, reading the Mail's reporting on this, it seems as if, you know, there's a sense within the army that they're being a little bit screwed over, that top brass are trying to throwing these soldiers under the bus in some sense to make themselves look more clean, more squeaky clean, to sort of appease a kind of bureaucracy. I mean, time will tell. The problem with this story is that all of the people are anonymous, so we can't. You know, there's only kind of scant details that we can go on here. But it will be an interesting debate in the weeks and months to come. You know, what is the right level of responsibility for soldiers? You know, how much leeway should they be given in difficult situations? Things like that. I think it's going to be.
You know, I agree with you that the highest standards should be applied at all stages, but I would say this to you, that the public don't care about this story, and I'm surprised it's front page. They only care about it in defending the British soldiers involved. This is a war situation. This is in Syria. Things happen in a war situation. This man was deemed to be a jihadist. He died. Right, there you go. He's just a stat. Surely there are more important things to be worried about than this.
But the accusation is that the top brass, it's precisely that, and I think people do care about the fact that the accusation in the news, in the article, is that off the back of past examples of possible war crimes, the top brass are saving their own necks and basically throwing their soldiers under the bus. So I think that certainly does deserve scrutiny.
Fraser, I want to stick with you on this one because I know that Eamon's going to be a fan of this. Greggs is the top breakfast spot, apparently.
Greggs is now
on the page of the Mirror.
Greggs is now our new favourite breakfast place, beating out McDonald's. People now prefer the Greggs bacon roll to the McMuffin.
Oh, do you know, there are adverts on radio, for instance, and it has all this sizzling and crackling going on and an egg breaking.
I quite like that. No?
Have you seen the bloomin' breakfast?
Yeah.
And the tagline is, breakfast done properly.
Yeah.
Really? Is that really?
Surely we needed a show and tell for this segment.
We should have compared on air, shouldn't we?
Would you? Well, I wouldn't have a McDonald's breakfast.
No, you wouldn't. You like your
I want
Greggs.
to tell you a very irritating thing about McDonald's. Why do they not serve hamburgers until post 11 o'clock?
I agree. I agree with this. Totally. Why would you want to go and have a random breakfast? If you want a burger, you want a burger.
microwaved egg.
Agreed.
You know,
I'm the
totally
other way
agree.
round to you. On a Saturday or something, I might not be up before 11. And then I want my muffin.
But they can still... Oh, well... Why can't
They should do both. They should do
They serve it
both.
all day,
That's
and
a
then you
great
could have
idea.
the choice.
Exactly, I agree
You
with
should
you.
be in charge, Fraser.
But as it turns out, I think Greggs is a magnificent success story about where they're opening and how they're doing it and where they're available. And the simple thing they do is that they do a bacon baguette.
Which you love.
Not bacon in brioche, you know, where things where bacon shouldn't be involved in, but they do a bacon baguette.
And one good thing about Greggs is that they actually give staff quite good bonuses. So they've been making huge profits, tens of £1 million in profits, and a lot of that they've decided to, you know, if you work there for more than 6 months, you get a cut of that. You get an annual nice little bonus.
It's a fantastic British success story. We should praise it in the way that Americans do McDonald's.
Well, it's very hard to get decent breakfast. I mean, for instance, we live in a building here. There's no food. There's no toast. There's no nothing, right? So basically, I'm eating this counter in the morning when I get ravenous here at all. So if we send out, I would send out to Greggs. Who would you send out to?
Greggs is a good shout, or M&S across the road.
Awful.
But,
Awful.
Oh, you're not a fan, are you?
No, but they do bacon and brioche, and they have all sorts of... They have a butter that smells on your hands for the rest of the day.
I take it you're not a prep man either.
But that's a similar story, isn't it?
No.
But Greggs
Brioche
needs to get in touch
Central.
with you. Have they been in touch with you? You need to be their influencer. You need to be the front of their campaign.
I think he already is. It
He
sounds
basically
like.
is.
No. Yesterday, when I left here to go for breakfast, the first breakfast we could find was in White City. There is nothing. It
All
is
the way over
really
there.
hard to find somewhere that actually does breakfast. There's somewhere nearby here which does a fancy, snazzy sort of breakfast.
I know exactly
that
what you're
place.
talking about.
So
yeah.
it can't be just like bacon and eggs. It has to be done.
You can't get a fry-up. It's a fantastic point. I was in the West of Ireland at the weekend, and the fry-ups there.
Oh.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, but
That's stunning.
we appreciate a breakfast. A breakfast is a big thing
It's the
to
most
us.
important meal of the day.
And then there'd be the other next important meal at lunchtime, and then another important meal in the afternoon.
Three very important meals of the day.
Yeah, the way it is there. What would you have? I mean, for your choice for breakfast, Anna, what would your choice of breakfast be? I like scrambled egg. I like smoked salmon.
I like eggs too. I think a fry-up if you're out, definitely. A nice old calf, but it has to be a proper one.
Yeah.
Westminster are some good options.
Are there?
Oh, yeah.
I do like when I see...
All-day breakfast places.
Well, that's good.
You know those, what are those vans called? You know that you can go to a van?
Oh,
or
like
whatever it is.
like a
I quite
burger
like
van
those.
thing.
And I like being at a
Like an
football
ice cream
match.
van for bacon.
Yes.
Is that what you're
That's
saying?
a great idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like the smell of onions anywhere. I don't care what that makes me buy something. What about you?
Yeah, it's got to be full English, especially if you're hungover, feeling a bit tender. Something, you know, it's got good bacon, good sausages, good egg. Perfect.
Well,
Can't
if
beat it.
anybody
Stop making
wants
me
to
hungry.
deliver anything to us today, fruit, meat, veg, anything, we're
Bacon.
just starving. That's all we're going to say.
Need to get a Greggs
guys, see you
installed
again in
upstairs.
40 minutes. Alex Deakin, morning. What's the weather like?
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and one or two showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. One or two showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine. And that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in one or two places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast. as we go through this evening. I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. And we'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 6th of March. It's Budget Day.
Good to see you. This is Breakfast. Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello today, because Isabel's a little bit under the weather.
Yes, she is.
Right, so Budget Day is finally here.
Yes, Jeremy Hunt looks to win over voters as speculation mounts over when the Prime Minister might call the election.
Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, will be standing up in the House of Commons at 12:30 to deliver this make-or-break spring budget. We know some tax cuts are coming, but what other rabbits might the Chancellor pull out of his budget hat?
Talking of elections, big wins for Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Super Tuesday yesterday, paving the way for a 2020 election rematch between the both of them.
Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
Missing royals, unexplained illness, and now celebrity Big Brother. Do the royals have a right to privacy, or should they be more open? That's a question we'll be putting to royal historian Hugo Vickers shortly.
And in sport, well, Harry Kane pulled a rabbit out of his Champions League hat, you know. Bayern Munich come good. Harry scores 2 more goals against Lazio. Erling Haaland is very happy at Manchester City for now. And England won't bid to host the World Cup for at least another 20 years.
West is best for sunshine today, and that's where we'll see the top temperatures. Further east, a lot of cloud and on the chilly side. Join me later for a full weather forecast.
Right, you're getting hot under the collar for this budget today. And do you know why? I think, Ellie, people are saying, how's it going to affect me? How am I going to do out of this? Philip says the election will be won and lost on immigration. A few pence here and there makes absolutely no difference at all. Council tax rising, money treated as confetti. The big question is, who will be the next leader of the Conservatives in opposition, he says.
Well, generally, the vibe is it's not going far enough, and lots of people would like to see income tax brought right down. So do keep those views coming in. Jim says, to get me to vote Tory, not only will I have to cut taxes, they'd also have to grant me an extra £50 a week in my pension. Then I'll think about it. It's insulting. They simply assume they can bribe us.
We'll keep those views coming in. We'll reflect as many as we can throughout the programme. But it is a big day. It is finally here. Last throw of the dice for the Chancellor, or is it? Maybe that could be in November. Spring budget today. On the agenda, 2p cut, we're hearing, to national insurance.
Yes, also possible tax cuts, fuel duty frozen, and possible changes to non-dom status as well.
Now, this will be an election budget, as was alluded to over the weekend. So the question is, will that be enough to turn things around for the Conservatives? GB News economics and business editor, Mr. Liam Halligan. How would you rate the importance of today, Liam?
It's certainly very important. I don't think it's quite make or break for the Tories, so that's how they're spinning it, because I think the election will probably be in October, November, so they will have time for another, what we call, get this, fiscal event, maybe in September. We had a tax cut that came in January, a cut to national insurance of 2p, the headline rate from 12 to 10p in the pound. That's now going to be cut to 8p in the pound.
Liam, could I just say something, mate? No one noticed it. No one noticed that tax cut. And I think this is the thing with people. They think he's done this before, he's doing it again. And, you know, to get 400 quid, you'd spend it on a Saturday night.
I think that's true. I think for a lot of households, 450 quid is pretty meaningful. The Chancellor's trying to double that today. Let's have a quick look at some of the measures he may go through here. The Treasury unusually has confirmed that it will be cutting national insurance by 2p. It fell from 12 to 10p in January, so it's only been knocking about so far, Eamonn, in one packet, pay packet. People haven't got their February pay packet yet if they're paid monthly, so it's going to be 8% from April. The average worker will be £900 better off if you combine those two tax cuts. It's cheaper than cutting income tax. Why is that? An income tax cut will cost the Chancellor 7 billion quid. A national insurance cut will cost the Chancellor 5 billion quid. That's because income tax is paid by pensioners, income tax is paid by landlords on their rent. Also, he's gone for national insurance because national insurance applies in Scotland as well as England, Wales and Northern Ireland. Income tax in north of the border is decided by the Scottish Government. The Tories want to give this tax cut north of the border as well. Pensioners will be upset. Yeah. I saw that in the readers' emails too. But the Tories would say, yes, but we've just confirmed for pensioners the triple lock is going to continue. So the basic state pension will be upgraded by 8.8% in April.
Would you explain to people what a triple lock is?
So what the triple lock is the Tory promise. They introduced it with the Lib Dems back in the early 2010s, that the basic state pension every year will go up, Eamonn, by either earnings growth in inflation, that is growth in prices, or by 2.5%, whichever is the greater. Earnings growth was greater this year, so that's why the basic state pension is going up by about 8.5% in April.
And on that note, Chris has emailed in, Liam, saying while the triple lock has been kept, pensioners are being taxed more because thresholds have not increased. Incomes are not keeping pace with inflation.
That's exactly right. And even though the Chancellor's making a huge thing of this cut in national insurance, I mean, even pre-announcing it, very unusual, I do think today the tax burden, the overall amount of taxation that we endure compared to the size of the economy will go up. And that's exactly because, as GB viewers and listeners know, there's this thing that we all have now come to view as fiscal drag. You're dragged into higher tax brackets because the tax thresholds are kept where they are, even as wages and prices go up. Let's just have another quick look at some of the other things we're expecting today. We're expecting fuel duty to be frozen at just under 53p a litre. It's been frozen for years and years. No, the Chancellor's not going to dare to put that up just before an election. We're expecting that change to non-dom tax status. They are wealthy foreigners that live in the UK who somehow manage to pay a lot less tax than the rest of us. The Tories may clamp down on them, just as Labour wants to clamp down on them. Other wheezes to increase taxation, to pay for that headline cut in national insurance. Eamonn and Ellie, they're probably going to increase duty on business class airfares if you're lucky enough to go into the plane and turn left rather than turn right, as all the rest of us do. And there could be, I've got a little question mark there, some help for first-time buyers to try and get the housing market moving.
Let me tell you about business airfares, and I use business class going back to Belfast and forward. Is there any difference? No, you get a meal or a snack. Compared, the seats are the same size, everything. You'll sit two of us as opposed to three of us if you were sitting in economy. I think it'll just simply result in them eradicating business class. They'll get rid of it because people will sit and say, there's not that much difference, it's not worth paying for. They will, I'm telling you. So until we're all flying like as if we belong to Ryanair or EasyJet, nobody's blooming happy. Standards will completely fall.
Eamonn, we're so beyond my pay grade.
I'll tell you this.
Long haul, though, long haul, if you're going to the States from the UK, if you're flying to the Middle East or even to the Southern Hemisphere overnight, a lot of people will pay the extra money for business class because they can get their head down, they can get a proper night's sleep. A lot of the business class seats, they lie flat now. I do think you're right. I do think the Tories are overestimating the amount of money that they're going to get from this hike in business class airfares. Because as the Treasury so often does, as the Office for Budget Responsibility so often does, it doesn't take into account, Eamonn, the behavioural change, the change in how people react to tax changes. So I reckon if you really lowered income tax, you get a lot more activity, you get a lot more revenue from lower income tax.
What they are doing,
just as if you raise tax.
Nobody talks about it, is they steal from you. They have retrospective tax introduced by George Osborne, where they basically say, that Liam Halligan, we could get more tax from him. Let's look at his books again. Liam, you know the way we said all of that was OK for the past 10 years? We've changed our mind. We're going back 10 years, tax and national insurance, and we're going to take that off you. Loan charges, IR35, and it doesn't mean anything to anybody until it hits them.
I think there's something in that. I do think HMRC, the tax man, is getting more aggressive in the way they pursue, particularly freelance workers. A lot of us in the media are freelance workers. A lot of us across the economy, it's the gig economy. IR35, as you say, Eamonn, most people might not know what that means. That is how the revenue taxes people who aren't officially employees. They're contractors to companies. That means companies don't pay national insurance on those employees. HMRC wants to make sure that they're not employees, that they are contractors. You're right. Look, all this is a function of an economy that's not growing. When an economy is stagnating, when you're growing at 0.5%, less than 1% as we have been for a long time now, and particularly since the pandemic, everything gets tighter. Money for public finances isn't there. The politicians want to squeeze those of us with means more to get money for public finances. And this budget is going to be a tough one. The tax burden's at a 70-year high. There's very little money. That's why the Chancellor's doing a national insurance cut rather than a more expensive income tax cut.
OK. Liam, thanks. And stay with us all morning, Liam, and obviously keep your eye across things and preview the Chancellor on his feet at 12:30. Thank you, mate.
Thank you. Well, what do you want to see in the budget? Well, our reporter Jack Carson is out today in Leamington Spa speaking to local people and local business owners. Jack, what are locals there expecting? What would they like to see from the budget?
Yeah, well, good morning to you both. We're with Murray Carmen Fitness here in Leamington Spa this morning to find out, of course, why and what people want from the budget, what life is like at the moment. Murray, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You're a small business owner. You're a mum as well. Just kind of tell us, what's life like at the moment in the current economy?
Yeah, so it's really hard with the cost of living. I've got 3 small children, 2 at school, but I've also got a 9-month-old. So I've had to have some time off work juggling running my business as a mom and also the kids is a constant balance. I don't think you ever get it right, but particularly how expensive everything is. You know, it's really hard to support the children, my kids, but also grow a business.
Yeah, and you know, obviously we know about the cost of living pressures. Jeremy Hunt's going to stand, you know, at the dispatch box today, deliver his budget. What maybe could he say today that would maybe give you a bit more confidence, would give you a bit more support? What are you looking for today?
Yeah, so the VAT threshold is at 85,000 and that's been there since 2017. So if they could increase that in line with inflation, that would give small businesses like myself a bit more room for growth. Also, when it comes to maternal mental health, so I'm a massive champion of this. I think there needs to be more provisions for mums, particularly in the pregnancy and beyond. And I think if they did that, we would then potentially see a benefit to the mother later on. You know, 20,000 women a year in 2023 couldn't get access to support during their postpartum period. And that has massive implications for the mother, but also for our children.
Okay, well, Mary, thank you very much for that so far. We're going to be joined by Mary a little bit later on this morning as well, so plenty still to come on what really, of course, is important for people that run small businesses and also part of a family as well in this budget today.
OK, thank you very much indeed. We're going to America now. One of the biggest days in the election calendar there. Super Tuesday yesterday, 15 states across the country and one US territory heading to the polls to select their preferred presidential candidate.
Yes, a big night for President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, with the 2020 rematch now looking more likely than ever.
Joined now by former advisor to the Bank of England, Dr. Roger G. Wolb. I do trip on your name. I'm sorry, Roger. But you'll not trip over him. And a 2020 delegate for Joe Biden, Victor Shi. Victor, how are you?
Hi from America. Great to be here.
Victor, all the talk is of Donald Trump. When are we going to hear something from Joe Biden?
When we hear something from Joe Biden, well, I think that you're already hearing a lot from his campaign. Tonight was, or I guess on Super Tuesday was a big victory for him. You saw the Democratic Party really turn out in droves to vote for Joe Biden. I think he's on a path for victory in terms of the nomination for the Democratic Party and then ending up hopefully with a general election win as well.
Dear goodness, Victor, I'm listening to you and I'm being polite to you. How on earth can anybody stand behind that man when he just looks like the next step from should be into a care home?
Well, I think his record and his policies speak for themselves. When you look at what he's been able to do since he went into office, there are many things that benefit all Americans, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat in America. So I think he has a real record to run on. I think most people realize that. That's why you see election after election, he's winning in ways that polls and headlines could never predict.
Well, Roger, that's Victor put in the argument for Joe Biden there. I look at him and I think, who's making the decisions for him?
Well, Victor, nice to meet you. Victor, he would say that, wouldn't he, as we say? And yeah, I mean, somebody said to me the other day, you know, the problem is with Trump that he gets angry and he could hit the nuclear button if he got too angry. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I know Trump and know that absolutely is not the case. That's nonsense. But I do worry that Joe Biden could hit it thinking it says snooze. He's pretty old.
What do you think about Nikki Haley in all of this, Roger? Do you think we'll expect her after the performance in Super Tuesday, or lack thereof, really?
I'm kind of...
Will she drop out?
Yeah, I'm kind of predicting she'll drop out by dinner time today. I may be wrong. But I think her billionaire backers have probably shut their checkbooks and said, Nikki, great job. I mean, she's done amazingly for next time. She's set herself up very well. She may be vice president. I mean, the field is widening with various people, but there's a chance there. So I think she's done as well as she's going to do. She's got no travel plans, no more commercials. She obviously knows that she's gone as far as she can. So, yeah.
And Victor, what about a Democratic ticket? Would it be the same as last time around?
So, sorry, you're saying, will the Democratic ticket be the same time as last time around?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you're going to see President Biden and Vice President Harris be on the same ticket. And can I make one point about Nikki Haley? I think I agree that she's probably going to drop out after this election. But one of the things I think is interesting about the results is that when you ask Nikki Haley voters sort of who they will vote for in the general election, a good 30 to 50% of them consistently say against Donald Trump. And I think most Americans see that because they are sort of hearing what Donald Trump is saying in broad daylight. Someone, when you talk about being a dictator on day one, he said he would be a dictator on day one. He would pull out of key programs. And those are things that I think matter to a lot of Americans. And that's why you're seeing, even from the Republican Party itself, people are starting to betray Donald Trump.
Well, Victor, he dominates the airwaves. I mean, there's no doubt he is a magnet for publicity. What will people get from Joe Biden if he runs next time around?
Well, I think it's an expansion of what he's already been able to do as president. When you talk about things that presidents wish to have gotten done, President Biden has achieved some tremendous things, like passing a really big infrastructure package, investing in climate change, forgiving student loan debt. Those are things that he's promised to do, and he's already accomplished. And then when you look at a second Biden term, he'll continue to do those things. He'll continue to deliver on his promises and try to make lives better. And I think that is what he's running on this election cycle.
Thank you. Victor and Roger, it's budget day here. We've just got other stuff pressing on us today. We'll say thank you and goodbye for both of you for your analysis there. And we'll speak again later, Roger. Thank you.
Well, let's return to our top story, shall we now? The Chancellor is set to deliver his budget later today at 12:30. We're now joined by Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones. Very good morning to you, Darren Jones. Look, we are expecting to see the Tories scale back on non-dom tax regime in the budget a little bit later on today, and that instantly makes us think about the Labour Party, doesn't it? Because it's all we've heard from the Labour Party in the past few months. This rather takes the wind out of your sails, doesn't it? This was your headline policy, and it looks as though the Tories have beaten you to it.
Well, good morning. I mean, look, if the Chancellor does announce the non-dom status change in the budget later today, it will be a humiliation for the Conservatives, who have until yesterday said that it was not an effective plan for the country, even though we in the Labour Party have been saying it was the right thing to do for many, many years. But look, as you might expect, we in the Labour Party planned for these budgets as much as the Conservatives and have anticipated them potentially doing that later today. And if they do, we'll set out our updated plans in due course.
What will the Labour Party do differently then? Because the Chancellor is saying, well, at least he has a plan. He says the Labour Party doesn't even have a plan.
Well, I think the Chancellor is saying that this is yet another plan for growth. And yesterday I looked back over the last 14 years of the Conservatives in government, and they've had 21 plans for growth over the years. This is the 22nd. And where are we? We're in the middle of Rishi's recession. So I'm not quite sure if you can take the Chancellor's word for it, that on the 22nd attempt, he's going to get growth back into the economy. And that's really important, because if you step back from all the individual measures, the fact that this budget alone is not going to go anywhere near repairing the damage of the last 14 years is the big political question here in Westminster today. And people at home will be experiencing that and will know that, because when they look at their pay slip, when they look at their taxes, when they look at their mortgage or rent, when they look at how much money they've got at the end of the month, they know that after 14 years, they are not better off under the Conservatives.
Yeah, but Darren, the big danger, the big problem for you and the Labour Party is that it is consistently implied that Labour promises are unaffordable and that either have to be abandoned or they would lead to large tax rises. And then it means that, Darren, people like yourself have to spend much of your time defending that and debating that, when really it's policy that you want to be talking about.
That is not the Labour Party position to increase taxes. We've said, for example, that we're not going to be increasing taxes on working people. We've got very clear fiscal rules from our Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, that we will not be borrowing for day-to-day spending and that we will get debt falling as the size of the economy. And my job as Shadow Chief Secretary of the Treasury means that it is absolutely my responsibility to ensure that all of our policies from now going into the manifesto and the election campaign are fully costed and fully funded. And I can guarantee you of that. And when we get to the stage of updating our policies and launching our manifesto, I'll be very happy to come back onto your show to defend them.
Yes, but do you think that the Labour Party are actually trusted on the economy? I mean, your headline policy up until very recently was this green pledge, £28 billion. That was dropped, a big U-turn there. I mean, how can people trust the Labour Party with our money when you're not even in government yet and you're already U-turning on policies?
So we're not the ones U-turning on policies. It looks like it's going to be the Conservatives U-turning on policies today.
Well, you dropped that £28 billion pledge.
Rachel Reeves, It was refinanced because the Conservatives crashed the economy, and that meant that national borrowing was higher than it was previously. That was the responsible thing to do. And whether it's the Green Prosperity Plan or whether it's our response to the budget today, the Labour Party under Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves has changed. People can trust us with the economy. And if you look at polling from across the country, the Labour Party lead the Conservatives now, and Rachel Reeves leads Jeremy Hunt as being the most trusted on the economy. So this is the first time, I think, ever that the Labour Party is going from opposition, hopefully into government and election, ahead of the Conservatives on being trusted on the economy, and that's because of the hard work that Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and I have done to set that out for the country.
What about the hard work Jeremy Hunt will have done prior to today? Does it worry you?
Not particularly. I mean, we need to see what Jeremy Hunt puts in his budget today, but we know that the Conservatives have boxed themselves into a corner. They've maxed out the country's credit card, they've spent all of the money, and they failed, as I said now, on the 22nd attempt, how they're going to grow the economy. Indeed, last time, the 21st plan for growth in November last year, Jeremy Hunt set out 110 policies for growth, and where have we ended up? In the middle of Rishi's recession. I think the public can look at the record of the Conservatives in government, know that they have failed, and that, quite frankly, now it is time for change.
Darren Jones is the Shadow Chief Secretary to the Treasury. And Mr. Jones, thank you for your time on this budget day, a difficult day for you and a busy day for you. Thank you very much indeed.
What do you make of that? Is that far enough for you? Do you like what Labour have to say? Do let us know what you think. gbnews@gbnews.com.
Well, you could be in the money, not through the budget this time, but with the Great British Giveaway. Have a go.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, yes. Have a go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of money, and it could be yours. Guests coming to us from every direction this morning. Up next, it's going to be Harriet Baldwin. Harriet Baldwin is
the chair of the House of Commons Treasury Select Committee. She'll be talking about the budget at 12:30. We'll try and work out from her what could be coming out of the Chancellor's hat. Are there any more surprises to come? We'll hopefully find out for you on Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie.
Next.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
We're always told that there is a huge need for care workers in Britain. We're always told that the salaries just aren't big enough against the benefit system for British people to want to do that work. And there probably is some real truth in that. And yet, if up to 25% of those that come are acting illegally, and it would seem, up until now, that in some areas, foreign care workers come in, but bring in almost the same number of family members with them, that we need to have a proper debate about this. I'm very pleased to be joined by Mike Padgham, chair of the Independent Care Group. If I accept those arguments for a moment, how can it be that the system is so lax that up to 25% are found by the Inspector of Borders and Immigration to be working illegally?
Well, good evening to you, Nigel. It was good to join you. I mean, those figures are shocking to me. When I looked at it today, when I saw that 275 visas had been issued to a care home that didn't even exist, and a further over 1,000 people joined a company that only had previously 4 staff in it, it makes me wonder the bureaucracy of the Home Office didn't think to check that these companies exist in the first place, because it should be quite straightforward. If people are providing care, they're regulated by the Care Quality Commission. It's a simple phone call to check and double check. Sadly, there seems to have been very many loopholes at the beginning. I believe that's been tightened now, But I can't understand it because all the providers that are doing it in the proper way have to go through quite a rigmarole to actually get approved, and it takes months. So it beggars belief that this has happened and people have been approved for a company that doesn't even exist.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. The time is 7:27. It is, of course, Budget Day. Well, we're joined now by Conservative MP for West Worcestershire, Harriet Baldwin. Very good to see you this morning, Harriet. Look, this is being seen by many as a last chance budget for the Tories. So many Tory MPs actually expressing disappointment at Jeremy Hunt's decision to cut national insurance rather than income tax. They're pointing to the fact that the previous reduction, we've seen this all before, had no apparent impact on the polls. And with your party lagging 20 points behind, you need that boost, don't you? So is this a big enough rabbit out of the hat?
Well, I think what we'll see today in terms of the budget is we will see a Chancellor who continues to want to see lower taxes. And one of the things, of course, that everyone has noticed is we spent all that extra money during the pandemic on furlough. We spent a lot of money helping people with the cost of energy during the after the invasion of Ukraine. And so there's an extra 500 billion of public spending that's gone in during this Parliament. And so what you're seeing now is a path to lower taxes, to being able to hand some of that money back to taxpayers. And I think by doing it through national insurance, actually the Office for Budget Responsibility says that that is something that is less inflationary than income tax. And so, of course, we've made huge progress on inflation, down from 11.1 to 4%, but there's still some further room to go to get it back to target at 2%.
Harriet, I just want to make a comment here. This is pretty typical of comments that we're getting this morning. And this is from a guy called Kenneth. And just on the point you were making there about spending, and Kenneth says, I can't believe the hypocrisy of all the people demanding more tax cuts. And like that Egypt who's standing behind you there with a banner, this relates to him. Do they not know we are £2.5 trillion in debt, made way worse by the pandemic, when the government supported people's jobs whilst in a national lockdown? How do they think this has to be paid for? I bet everyone demanding cuts were more than happy to take the money and sit at home. I wonder what your man behind you thinks about that. I wonder where he was sitting when during the COVID and who was paying for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to remind viewers about furlough, and everyone very much welcomed the support that was given during the pandemic, and that was expensive. But I think what has happened now through prudent financial management is that the Chancellor is able to not only implement that tax cut that we saw last November that came into force on the 6th of January, but also I'm hoping today that we will see a further path set out to lower taxes in a responsible way that keeps debt falling.
It's being widely touted we're going to see a cut in public spending as part of the budget today. Lots of people will be very concerned about that, and we're seeing local councils going bankrupt at a rate of knots. The state of our roads, potholes, we know that that's what people really do care about in this country, and the state of our care homes as well. I mean, do you really think there is an appetite for less public spending?
I think public spending is incredibly important, and public spending is at a record high. In fact, what I would focus on is not the amount that's being spent, but the output. So at the moment, public spending is considerably higher than it was before the pandemic, but the output from the public services in terms of fixing roads and doing operations and so on isn't as high as it was before the pandemic. So I do think there needs to be a focus on what the public spending does as well as how much public spending is. But I do repeat that public spending is at a record high.
You, however, Harriet, are the chair of the House of Commons Treasury Select Committee. So I just want to ask you, what we're being leaked or what we're speculating about all seems rather dull and rather boring. Do you think we'll be surprised come lunchtime today with what the Chancellor has to say?
Well, I don't have any more information than you do in terms of what's going to be in the budget. I've got informed speculation myself. I was expecting that 5p off to continue at the pumps for another year. So that is something that I predicted, and I think we've heard that that'll be in today's budget. I do expect some further tax cuts that will help reward working people and will apply right across the UK. And I do expect that we will continue to have some extra rabbit that none of us know about at this point.
Well, this budget is sparking election talk. When do you think a general election will be called?
Oh, well, I can say with great confidence that it's going to be this year. I don't know when, because it's up to the Prime Minister to make that decision, but it'll be sometime between the 2nd of May, which is the earliest date, and I think November is
Oh, come on, you must have an inkling. You must have an inkling.
I don't know. I'm ready for the 2nd of May. I'm ready for the 2nd of May, but I don't have an inkling, no. Sometime between those 2 points.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you for your time this morning, Harriet Baldwin, and what's a very busy day for you. Appreciate your time and your comments. Thank you.
I think general election will be in November.
I think so too.
Well, there you go.
I'll be surprised.
We're very
if it's
in
not.
sync this morning. Let us know what you think. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Well, coming up, plenty of royal news this week. All sorts of things. I was just looking at this headline, the front of the Metro this morning, and it says Palace's anger at Kate date clanger. So apparently the army are selling tickets to see her somewhere, and Kensington Palace are saying this is news to us, or we haven't confirmed this. Why has this happened? But we're going to find out why it's happened, how she is, with Hugo Vickers, the royal historian, next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You're now in exile. I imagine it wouldn't be safe for you to go back to Russia. Can I ask you if you feel safe personally, and what do you think can be done to remove Putin, or is he going to be there for as long as he wants?
I think that is, of course, fundamental question. It is there should be pressure inside Russia and outside. Inside Russia right now, it's impossible because Putin put all leaders in jail, and some of us just abroad. Just two were already killed. Mr. Nemtsov, Boris Nemtsov, my friend, my collaborator on my party, was killed on the walls on Kremlin. Alexei Navalny was killed in jail and in the camp. And that is, the people live in fear to identify themselves as protesters, to identify themselves as against Putin's regime, etc. That's why today there is no chance for opposition to rise inside Russia. But outside, of course, this war against Ukraine, that is the fundamental issue for all foreign leaders. And in fact, just support of Ukraine and not to let Putin to destroy Ukraine, to defeat Ukraine. That is an important issue because just Ukraine, that's not just in Ukraine, war in Ukraine. Ukraine just fighting for their territorial integrity, but fighting for the whole European countries because after Ukraine, other countries could appear, other subject of aggression could be, and Putin easily could try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter. It could be one of the small countries of Baltic states.
Brand new Sundays from 6 p.m. The Neil Oliver Show.
It's absolutely vital that people are given the opportunity to take part in the debate, to say the things that matter to them, to be challenged. A country is only really a shared dream. As long as enough people have a shared idea of what it is, then that country exists. What GB News does is give voices somewhere they can be heard.
The Neil Oliver Show. Sundays from 6 p.m. on GB News.
Plenty of royal news on the agenda this week. The Princess of Wales. There was an unauthorised picture taken of her for the first time since Christmas.
And of course, her uncle Gary Goldsmith is currently in the celebrity Big Brother house, where his comments, while supportive of the royals, are causing plenty of headlines. So plenty to get stuck in with. Royal historian Hugo Vickers, who is here to tell us more. Very good morning to you, Hugo. And let's start with the Princess of Wales, shall we? Because it's a really difficult balance for the royal family, isn't it? They've been experimenting a little bit with sharing more of their health updates. We've seen that from the King, haven't we, being more open about his cancer diagnosis. But do you think there's a worry here that they have over-whetted the public appetite? Because there is this now demand for information, isn't there? The Princess of Wales has been trending all week with conspiracy theories about what could possibly be wrong with her.
Yes, I think it's a very difficult balance to get right because we were told she had the operation, and we were also told we weren't going to be told anything more about it. I mean, obviously, if I was her press secretary, what I would be wanting to do would be to tell you something, some really good news when she's getting better. And OK, there was that photograph, so we know she's up and about. I don't know whether it would have been a good idea maybe to have a picture of her sitting in the garden with her children or something. It is this terribly complicated balance. If you show enough, you feed the media enough, usually they will respect the boundaries. But if you tell them nothing at all, then, of course, they think they're being deprived of information and they go into overdrive.
Yeah, so William, at that funeral, that commemoration service that he pulled out of, if it was late, 45 minutes notice or so, are you of the opinion he should have said, look, I feel very nauseous, I'm unwell, I have a bad tummy, or given a reason for why he didn't attend, as opposed to what has led to a lot of the speculation, just pulling out without reason?
I rather agree with you, actually. I mean, we all understand somebody having a headache or eating a bad oyster or something like that. I suppose the problem, if I'm being really honest with you, is that probably his press secretary didn't really know why he'd pulled out and therefore put out a statement. This is sometimes the problem, I think, of lack of communication. But yes, I mean, in the past, we've been told lots of things like, regular somebody going into a hospital for a little checkup or, a bad knee or something. And we accept that. I mean, we must accept that. So I think that was a pity. And of course, it was all done very much at the last moment. Yeah. I mean, he was down to read the lesson in that service.
Well, Hugo, front page in the Metro today, an embarrassing fallout clouded the Princess of Wales' possible return to duties after tickets went on sale for an event, despite no confirmation she would actually attend. Now, this is trooping off the colour. So the Army have put on a website, she's going to be there for a preview of all of this, and the Palace or Kensington House or whatever are saying, oh, we don't know anything about this.
Yes, that is most unfortunate. I mean, there's every possibility that she will be at the Trooping the Colour, because she would be in the Major General's office, as you know, at Whitehall, overlooking it. She wouldn't be playing a big part in the proceedings. She would be a spectator, even though she's colonel of one of the Guards regiments. So let's hope she is there. But I imagine that probably Kensington Palace was a bit irritated, and I guess that probably some sort of ill-informed person just put out the normal document that would be put out at this time of the year, expressing the wish of, who's going to actually be present on the day, without checking.
On the issue of privacy, what do you make of Catherine's uncle, Gary Goldsmith, entering the celebrity Big Brother house? Because he's been making comments, hasn't he, albeit supportive ones, about the royal family, but also speaking about Meghan Markle.
Well, yes, I was thinking about this, and I was remembering, I mean, do you remember Terry Major Ball, and do you remember Jimmy Carter's brother, Billy Carter? There always seems to be one member of the family that goes a little bit sort of off the rails, if you like. They've never, ever been able to pin a single nasty thing on Catherine Middleton. So they tried a little bit with her sister for a time. They wanted to paint her as a sort of wild child. That didn't work either. And so now you've got the uncle. I mean, obviously, I would say, I bet you the family would much prefer that he didn't take part in this thing. What he has said, of course, about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle has been said before and is, I don't know about you, but rather widely accepted. I rather support what he says. I think that the statements that they made caused the late Queen an enormous amount of distress and difficulties at the last year of her reign, which was unacceptable in my view. And some of the statements have been contradicted even by them subsequently. So I don't think you need to take his comments too seriously. But of course, programs like the Celebrity Big Brother are an opportunity for people to chat and for indiscretions to come out. So I suppose probably the people making the program would be absolutely delighted, because everybody's going to now watch and see what he's going to say.
Well, Hugo, thank you for all that you've said today and letting us have your views. We do appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. But we've got to leave it there.
Yeah, well, stay with us. Still to come, we're going to be looking at the biggest stories of the day with Fraser Myers and Anna Mikhailova in the papers. That's next.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Well, we've been a constitutional monarchy since the late 17th century, and of course part of that deal is that the monarch, or indeed the close immediate royal family, should not interfere with politics that in any way could be seen to affect individual parties. Now, perhaps one of the most classic cases in the 20th century was Edward VIII, who during his brief reign went down to Merthyr Tydfil in South Wales, met thousands of people who'd lost their jobs in the steel industry. In fact, he shook so many hands in the end he had to change and shake with his left hand, and he said something must be done to get these people jobs. It was taken as a direct assault on the Conservative government of the day. And we could go on to Edward Heath, as many saw it, using the Queen to get us to join the common market, and things the Queen said during the referendum on Scottish separation. And we could, of course, talk about King Charles, who as Prince of Wales endlessly talked about climate change and net zero. But the intervention overnight from Prince William, I think, is the most direct political piece of interference that has international and global implications that I almost think we've ever seen. Prince William is saying to Israel, stop what you're doing. Some will see that as being given a free pass to Hamas. Many young people will say, hooray, he's doing the right thing. But whether he's doing the right thing or not, has he gone just too far with this? Should our future king intervene in this way? I don't believe that he should. I think he's making a very big mistake.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A study has found that even if you spend most of the day sitting still, this could be written for me, you can still drastically cut your risk of an early death by getting in 10,000 steps a day. Is that all? That's a marathon. That is incredible. We've got Fraser Myers and we've got to answer this one, Anna Mikhailova, with stories making the news today. Have you tried to do 10,000 steps a day?
I have done 10,000 steps, but it's not easy.
No.
I like walking a lot. I love walking around a big city. Always walk everywhere I can in London, but it's not easy.
Is it about 5 miles? Or
it's about 5.
That's a lot, isn't it?
Exactly.
One day.
Exactly. You need to plan it, basically. You need to sort of plan a walk or specifically plan going to certain places and avoiding the tube. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yes, but do you feel you live longer as a result?
I think if it's offset by as much sugar as I eat, probably not.
OK, gotcha. What, Fraser, was that?
No,
Are you doing your 10,000 steps?
I try to, but again, you have to, as you say, you have to plan it. It's not part of a normal day's steps, if you know what I mean. Your commute doesn't, most people's commute doesn't include 10,000 steps. I mean, I do deliberately, you know, take a longer walk or, you know, miss a tube stop or whatever to try and get a few more steps, but
it's a lot of steps.
Easy.
But there we are. We know it has to be done. Fraser, the budget has to be done as well today. Are you excited by this, or how are you feeling?
I'm not excited by the budget, especially if this national insurance cut is the only thing going. I'm sure there has to be something coming out of the hat from the Chancellor if the Tories are going to have any hope of retaining a few seats at the next election. But one thing
what could it be then, if you're thinking something might still be left to come out of this hat?
Income tax.
Really?
I remember people were talking a while back about inheritance tax. That seems to have been dropped as an idea, but maybe it will come back as a surprise. But I think one of the things that is quite frustrating about this budget is a lot of it is based on, you know, what they call the fiscal headroom. Now, the way that they calculate this figure is by saying, forecasting what they think debt will be in 5 years' time. And to quote the great Michael Gove, I think, you know, some of us have had enough of experts because the experts have been so wrong on this. Over the past 2 decades, the average forecast has been out by about 15%. So that's the equivalent of about 2 NHS budgets, 3 times worth HS2. So essentially, the Chancellor is working on a set of figures that are made up, that are almost certainly going to be wrong, and yet that's going to determine, you know, the investment decisions he makes, the tax decisions he makes. Something is clearly very wrong here. You know, we're living under kind of tyranny of the spreadsheet a little bit. I think we need to shake things up a little bit. There's too much economic orthodoxy, and that is, you know, a drag on growth.
Anna, what do you think of it?
Well, I think one thing certainly that needs to be looked at is the way that... So the OBR was set up to be an independent oversight. And I think the principle of that is great and absolutely it's much better than the Treasury marking its own homework. But in reality, what happens is people work in the Treasury and then they usually go and work in the OBR. So it tends to be the same sort of people who all know each other. And I think that can be a bit of a problem. And look, the figures are certainly not made up, but I think anyone who's not involved in this world looks at it and sees that, you know, 1 month the forecast was one thing and then a few months later it's revised to be something completely different. And it always looks a bit odd, because if you were managing your household finances, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Well, the Prime Minister, I'm not sure what he does in the household generally, but he's a bit too busy to worry about looking at a lot of things at the minute, because he's too busy stacking the dishwasher and making his bed. Anna, tell us why.
Well, do you remember during COVID when he was Chancellor and his nickname was Dishy Rishi? Well, we now know that that's literal. He loves doing the dishes. He loves restacking the dishes after his wife. So they've given this interview to Grazia magazine, which is all...
We have a clip of that, actually.
Great.
Let's have a quick look at that first.
Definitely Rishi, but I am A for enthusiasm, so I see something...
Yeah, but then it requires redoing after you've been very enthusiastic.
But I still load it, and then Rishi comes and rearranges it. It creates
more work.
It rearranges it.
So that's the PM and his wife there. So just let me get this straight, Anna. The dishwasher, somebody has put the dishes into the dishwasher already,
Yes.
and then you're telling me before they're washed,
yes,
he goes in and restacks them, reorders them.
Yes, yes.
A lot of people do that.
I mean, it's a very divisive topic. The particular one I like is the people who get very, very angry about which way you put the cutlery in, down or up, which I personally couldn't care at all, but people get very, very agitated about it. So this sounds like a similar type of household. Sunak says that when he restacks it, he manages to get more dishes in, which you could argue,
It's efficient, and you
that's
can imagine
efficient.
that from him. Yeah.
Saves water.
But see, I'm with you, Anna. They're in. That's all I need. They're in. I press the button and off we go. It's how they get out then is my main concern after
Sort of
that.
strong OCD vibes we're getting from that interview. The other thing that Sunak does is that apparently she doesn't make the bed properly. So he's thinking. So he will go down to the office, down to the Prime Minister's office, and he's thinking constantly about the unmade bed. So he'll go up in the middle of the day to make the bed. So there you go.
Now, do you think this is true? Do you think he's actually running about stacking the dishwasher and making the bed, or do you think it's actually he might have a little bit of a help?
I was going to say, I think I would have thought he would have had some household help. He can certainly afford it.
To be fair, though, I imagine when you're doing a job like his, you probably do want some relief from it by just something that's simple, mundane, and that you can actually get done. When you're grappling with problems that are so large and usually can't solve anything, making the bed probably does have an appeal.
And it feels like an achievement. When I'm having a stressful day, I love to stack the dishwasher and get everything in there. I've only got a tiny one.
Are you good at making beds?
Yeah, very good.
Are you?
Yeah, and I chop all the pillows.
See,
do you know about that?
I admire anybody who can do that. I do, because anybody that can make a bed the way you see it in a hospital or whatever, looking absolutely perfect.
Or a nice hotel.
I can make it, but there's wrinkles. There's too many wrinkles. I can't get it straight as if it's just come out of an ironing machine or something.
I'll sort you out. I can show you how.
Do all that?
Yeah.
You're a very good
It's all
catch,
about
Ellie.
the cushions in height order and give them a good chop.
Now, when you say, wait a minute. When you say cushions, do you
like
mean...
scatter cushions.
Do you mean...
I was going to say...
So here's the point.
You must have a million cushions.
Millions.
What is the
Never
point?
be too many.
What is the point? It's like sandbags.
No, they look so lovely.
They don't look lovely.
They do.
Right, the amount of times I go and I flop on my bed and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever...
Push them all off.
No. My wife then comes in and says, get off those cushions. So what are they there for?
Decorative purposes. And they look
so
really
they're not
pretty.
there to use?
No. They're there to look pretty. And they do. They really do.
I think cushions got to be functional. That's my
situation.
view. I think there's a strong gender divide.
Thank you. Got to call time and all of that, guys. See you in 40 minutes. Right now, here's Alex.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and 1 or 2 showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. 1 or 2 showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine. And that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in 1 or 2 places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast.
As we go through this evening, I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. And we'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text prize to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Hello there, what about you on this budget day? The time 8 o'clock, it's a Wednesday, it is the 6th of March.
And this is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Budget day finally here. Jeremy Hunt looks to win you over as speculation mounts over when the Prime Minister might call any election.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt will be up on his hind legs in the House of Commons at 12:30. We know some tax cuts are coming, but can he pull a budget rabbit out of his hat, or is the rabbit dead?
Yes, the Chancellor has crossed the T's and dotted the I's on his spring budget. But will it be enough to win back disillusioned voters? Find out more with me very soon.
Big wins for Donald Trump and Joe Biden in their Super Tuesday election contest, paving the way for 2020 election rematch.
Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
What did you say? Paul Coyne is the worst sports presenter, is that what it was?
Well, if I was Donald Trump.
In the sport today, Man City take on Copenhagen in the Champions League. Erling Haaland says he's very happy at Man City. For now. In tennis, Simona Halep has her doping ban reduced, is now free to play again, and England will not bid to host the World Cup for at least another 20 years.
West is best for sunshine today, and that's where we'll see the top temperatures. Further east, a lot of cloud and on the chilly side. Join me later for a full weather forecast.
Budget day today. Loads of you getting in touch with us today. We asked you, what do you want to see in the budget? Well, Lyndon says, my monthly bills have gone up by just under £300 a month. As for these national insurance cuts, well, they just go into the black hole of misery.
Michael says, what about keeping all taxes as they are, but raising the tax thresholds? Now, this is where you lose me. This is where I'm just amazed at why don't they just make it simple? Why don't they make it simple? Liam Halligan, our business and economic editor, joins us in the studio. It is a big day. They fiddle about and they shave a bit here and they put a bit there and whatever. Surely it could be more simple.
It could be more simple, Eamonn. We have an incredibly long tax code in this country. It runs to thousands and thousands of pages. And there's a whole industry of accountants and actuaries who are paid lots of money to help guide us all through it. I completely agree with GB News viewers and listeners who want a much simpler tax system, but the tax system isn't going to get any simpler today. Let's have a look at some of the headline measures that we know are coming. We know that the Chancellor is going to cut 2p off the headline rate of national insurance. That fell from 12 to 10% in January, so people felt that in their January pay packets. It's set to fall another 2 percentage points to 8% in April. Those two tax cuts combined will make the average worker on the average wage in the UK 900 quid a year better off after tax and not to be sniffed at. Why are they doing national insurance? What is national insurance anyway? Why aren't they just cutting income tax? Well, national insurance is a tax in all but name. It's levied on your income before you get your take-home pay, just like a tax. The difference is, Eamonn and Ellie, that national insurance isn't paid by pensioners. National insurance cut also applies in Scotland. Because a national insurance cut is narrower, only applying to workers, not to landlords or pensioners on their incomes, it's cheaper. So the government can't afford a headline cut in income tax. That will cost them 7 billion quid. A national insurance cut will cost them only 5 billion quid. That's why they're doing it this way round. I wouldn't say it's designed to confuse, but it certainly requires quite a bit of explanation, as I've just demonstrated.
It does leave open the option, doesn't it, for an income tax cut to come potentially as a manifesto pledge. Do you think that's a bit of political game playing here?
I think that is possible, Ellie. I think you're on the right lines, but it will depend on events, dear boy, or dear lady.
Yes.
Events in terms of, will the economy grow? Will the Bank of England cut interest rates? We thought we'll see multiple interest rate cuts by the time of the autumn. That's why the Tories are going along, wanting an election in the autumn rather than in the spring. But those interest rate cuts, they now may not materialise because we've got signs of more inflation in the system with oil prices rising, geopolitical tensions. Please don't shoot the messenger. But what's going on here is that the Chancellor's having to raise taxes elsewhere in order to pay for that headline cut in national insurance. That's what happens when the economy barely grows. You have very little fiscal room for manoeuvre. Let's have a look at some of the other headline measures that the government may implement. We know that there's going to be fuel duty frozen at 52, just under 53p a litre. That hasn't been increased for more than 10 years. The Chancellor doesn't want to risk raising fuel duty, upsetting motorists buying their petrol and diesel for their vans and cars before an election. We know to raise money, the Tories want to change non-dom tax status. That's like a tax, part of our tax code that allows wealthy foreigners to live in the UK and pay less tax, trying to attract them here so they spend their money here. We are almost certain there's going to be an increase in duty on business class airfares. Again, another measure aimed at wealthy voters in order to pay for that headline national insurance cut. And there may be some help for first-time buyers. So it's very much a mixed bag, lots and lots of moving parts. But the big picture here is that the economy isn't growing very fast. The public finances are already under huge pressure. The tax burden is at a 70-year high. And even with these tax cuts, because of those thresholds being frozen, as we just heard from one of our valued viewers, I still think the overall tax burden, the weight of tax on the voters, on the economy, even with this headline tax cut, the overall tax burden after today could still be going up.
OK. Liam, thank you very much indeed. We'll now hear from our valued political correspondent on this one, Olivia Utley. Olivia, will you venture into the chamber today?
I will definitely be venturing into the chamber to watch this budget statement. Jeremy Hunt has been on a 17-mile run this morning to prepare for it, which I don't think is how I'd be spending the morning if I were him. It'll be really interesting to see in the chamber how MPs on both sides of the House react to this budget. On the right of the Conservative Party, there are plenty of MPs who I've spoken to who just don't think this 2p cut to national insurance is going to be enough to woo back voters. As Liam explained there, it doesn't benefit pensioners. And as we know, the grey vote, as it's called, is very reliable in elections. Pensioners tend to actually go to the ballot box. Rishi Sunak promised when he was fighting to become Prime Minister that he would reduce income tax by 1p. But Jeremy Hunt has put the kibosh on about that. He has said that it would be too expensive and inflationary. There are also plenty of Conservative MPs who've gone on the record in recent months saying that they would like to see that income tax threshold reduced, as Liam just explained, but it doesn't sound as though Jeremy Hunt is going to do that. And according to my calculations, the cut to national insurance will be entirely wiped out in the next 5 years by the fact that those income tax thresholds haven't risen with inflation. If they had risen with inflation, people would be much, much better off than they are with this 2p cut to national insurance. So my prediction is that quite a lot of Conservative MPs, particularly those on the right of the party, will not be satisfied with this, and they might not even bother to disguise their dissatisfaction. OK, thank you very much, Olivia. Amazing that the Chancellor's already been on a 17-mile run today, and then Liam Halligan says in the House he will get on his hind legs, he said his hind legs, to deliver the budget. I mean, that's not normal. That is incredible. That is dedication.
He's very active, isn't he?
Wow. I mean, and you can see it with his figure.
See it with his figure.
Well, you can. He's not carrying an extra inch of flesh, is he?
Well,
on that at all. Unlike one of the American presidential candidates. But anyway, Super Tuesday it was yesterday.
Yes, we'll head over to the US, shall we? Because voters across 15 states and 1 US territory headed to the polls yesterday to select the preferred presidential candidate.
It was a big night for President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump. What people are saying is, if they enter into a presidential election later this year, it will be a rematch of 2020. Joining us to discuss that and to explain what's happened overnight, GB News reporter Ray Addison. We've got former advisor to the Bank of England, Dr. Roger Gewald, on this. Roger, amazing. I mean, when you look at the rematch that looks as though it's going to take place, is that a good thing or a bad thing, or does it leave you disappointed?
Well, I think it's a good thing because, I mean, Trump is certainly going to get the Republican nomination. I've been predicting in the last few hours that Nikki Haley may well drop out by dinner time today. I think her backers, her billionaire backers, have probably closed their checkbook, said that's enough. and you've done a great job for next time, Nikki, but that's it for now. And on the Democrat side, I mean, the candidates opposing Biden haven't even been allowed on the ballot in North Carolina, and they're not very strong contenders. So, yeah, I think it'll be the two of them.
Ray, what did you make of what you saw last night?
Well, I thought it was interesting. Obviously, it's the biggest single day for Americans to choose their candidates. You've got a third of all the delegates available. Neither Biden nor Trump getting enough delegates to secure the automatic nomination. However, obviously, in the case of Biden, it's a foregone conclusion unless something happens and he withdraws. In the case of Trump, it's simply a matter of time. And I think we're looking at around about March the 12th. Will be the date where he passes the number of delegates to secure that automatic nomination. Now, obviously, if Haley does drop out this afternoon, as has been predicted there, then he becomes the presumptive nominee automatically.
What about the whole Democratic setup, Roger, as well? If Biden takes a tumble, which looks highly likely, down the aircraft or helicopter steps, who would be the front runner for the Democrats?
It's hard to say. I mean, you know, people have discussed over and over, pardon me, why the Democrats haven't fielded a better candidate. One, the gentleman is the heir to a family liquor company which he's built up, and he is a congressman, in other words, a plain vanilla MP. I mean, is that a qualification to run America? And the lady, Marianne, her main CV credential is that she is Oprah Winfrey's spiritual advisor. And neither of them are very strong. And surely in a country of over 300 million people, the Democrats could have fielded somebody better than that.
So the vice president wouldn't step in for that role?
Well, she would automatically if he, as you said, heaven forbid, fell down the stairs. Of course, there is a whole rule line of succession. She'd step in temporarily. But in terms of, you know, who might be the next Democratic candidate for president,
it ain't going to be her.
Surprising. They haven't got anybody. I don't think it'll be her, no.
But that is what is so surprising watching over here from across the pond is this seems to be the best that they have in the United States. It's a 77-year-old versus an 81-year-old.
Well, it's interesting because obviously Biden was supposed to be setting the Democratic Party up for the future. He was never really seen as being a two-term president because of his age. However, his VP, Kamala Harris, is just polling so badly. I mean, even worse than Joe Biden is. There just doesn't seem a route to sort of for him to stand down and let her take over. That wouldn't necessarily be the right way to do it. And he can't switch to another VP because the optics on that wouldn't be very good. Obviously, she's the first female vice president, a woman of colour as well, and that just simply isn't an option. And so it kind of leaves the Democratic Party at this situation where they've kind of got to convince him to sort of stand down and maybe bring in a third option from somewhere else.
Let's talk about our budget today, Roger. I mean, you've given advice to the Bank of England before. Any advice that you would give to Jeremy Hunt?
Keep running.
Oh.
Yeah, keep 17 miles today.
Just go for 50. I mean, it's just the same old smoke and mirrors. I'm very cynical. The second 2p reduction in national insurance does obviously nothing for pensioners, very little for the low paid. He just won't move those ruddy thresholds, which is the first thing that he should be doing. And consequently, as with the autumn statement, the net effect of all these wonderful tax cuts that he's singing about while he's running through the forest today is more taxation, more tax take for the government, more money out of our pockets. So I'm sorry, Jezza, you're not fooling anybody, and you too, Rishi, by saying that you're cutting taxes. You've just raised the actual tax take again.
Yeah. But that's keeping the city, the bankers happy. That's keeping all the people who attacked Liz Truss last time around. It's keeping them in line.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So listen, if you were there, what would you do?
I would do something that I'm going to give Richard Tice, the head of the Reform Party, credit for talking about, which I don't think people are paying enough attention to. I don't believe that the government doesn't have enough money for tax cuts. I've never believed that. I've been saying for over a year that that's the case. I expected them to make huge tax cuts just about now, or at least before a general election. But I think Galloway's win and the split in Labour has strengthened the hand of the Tories, so they're now doubling down. Richard Tice's point is that we are one of the few countries that pays interest. I'm going to try to make this very simple because economics can be very boring. But I mean, we do quantitative easing. That is, we print money. It's not real money. It's just computer code. The Swiss National Bank, the European Central Bank, many central banks do not pay interest on that phony money that gets printed. We pay £35 billion a year to the poor banks who already are not getting enough from 14 unnecessary interest rate rises. Stop that tomorrow. Don't kill inheritance tax and pander to the wealthy. You've got £42 billion, Mr. Hunt and Mr. Sunak.
OK, Roger.
Roger, thank you. Thank you both very much indeed.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Some other stories coming into the newsroom today. Here's how they're stacking up. Judges across England and Wales are to prioritise the longest delayed rape cases in a bid to end the anguish of victims in backlog limbo.
The unprecedented move to surge resources into the oldest rape cases is an attempt by the judiciary to crack down on some of the worst court delays.
Junior doctors in Northern Ireland have begun a 24-hour strike for the first time in a dispute over pay. Northern Ireland's Department of Health has said there will be significant disruption to patient care. The BMA has said it shows junior doctors felt they had no other choice, and it comes as NHS consultants in England have voted on a new pay deal in a push to end the strikes. We'll keep you posted on that.
Actress Dame Helen Mirren has been recreated in Barbie form, complete with her Oscar. The one-of-a-kind doll shows her in the outfit she wore on the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival last year. Dame Helen has said she's blown away by her Barbie doll, and she takes it as a huge compliment.
If you're heading out today, you'll wonder what the weather is going to be doing. Alex Deacon will put you in the picture.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and one or two showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. One or two showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine. And that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in one or two places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast. As we go through this evening, I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again, some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. We'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales, could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
Now it's the latest Great British Giveaway and your chance to win £12,345 in cash and a whole host of seasonal treats. Here's how you could make it all yours.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck indeed. Now, do stay with us. Still to come, we'll be hearing from you on what you want to see from the budget. And get in touch as well, gbviews@gbnews.com. What would you like to see the Chancellor announce at 12:30? That's next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
So after his mad dash to see his father last week, Prince Harry predictably went on TV to talk about it. He gave his first interview to Good Morning America, whilst apparently being filmed by a crew that were doing a documentary on the Invictus Games. He didn't disclose his father's diagnosis, but frankly, even the fact that he was on TV talking about it was concerning. No wonder they're keeping him at arm's length. This is what he said.
How did you get the news that the king was ill?
I spoke to him.
And what did you do next?
I jumped on a plane and went to go and see him as soon as I could.
How was that visit for you emotionally?
Look, I love my family. The fact that I was able to get on a plane and go and see him and spend any time with him, I'm grateful for that.
An illness in the family can have a galvanizing or sort of reunifying effect for a family.
Absolutely.
Is that possible in this case?
Yeah, I'm sure. Throughout all these families, I see it on a day-to-day basis. The strength of the family unit coming together.
He also said that he loves his family, but then he said that he had his own family in America. So which family does he love? The late Queen's last few years of life were marred with accusations of racism, which Harry later backtracked on, claiming that they hadn't actually used the word, so inadvertently admitting to gaslighting us all. But the Sussex's stock is falling in the States, and the only thing that makes them interesting is their proximity to the royal family. And now the king is ill, Harry has even offered to muck in and take on official duties to help his father. Look, I want to see reconciliation and love and joy, but I'm afraid Meghan has yet to even speak to her father as far as we know, and Harry didn't apparently even reach out to his brother. Whilst his dad might fall for it, I doubt William will be as soft. Good luck with that, Harry.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, we've got so many comments from you. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Melinda says, it's horrendous when you get people on bigger wages saying they cannot live on the amount that they earn. What if you were earning 20 to 25k? Fair point.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, Sue says, as people in state pension don't pay national insurance, all pensioners are forced to work beyond retirement, won't benefit from a cut in national insurance. However, a cut in income tax or an increase in the threshold would help everyone.
Yep, and Linda says the 2p cut in national insurance will go straight into a big council tax hike. The government needs to raise the threshold, she says.
Yeah. Jeff says, good morning, Jeff. Reduce national insurance but leave the tax threshold as it is. Also, we keep giving money to France to do nothing in the Channel, giving billions in foreign aid, sending millions to Ukraine, spending 15 million a day on illegals, who this government told us would not be allowed to stay. You tell me if this is a competent government, and I don't even mention the money spent on the great climate hoax, he says, but that's obviously debatable.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is distress. I mean, the thing is, you can obviously see that people are creaking at the seams with what they've got to pay and what they're expected to pay and how the heck you survive. My hat goes off. Everybody's doing a splendid job. Do politicians get it? Do they realise how bad it is? Do you know what? I'm going to be controversial here. I'm not sure they do.
No.
I think they play their little political games and they work in and work there. Do real things that affect real people's lives. Listen to what real people have to say. Listen to what hurts them. Forget all your internal politics, because that's not going to win you the election.
Well,
right.
I go as far as to say I think many Tory MPs actually realise today that this isn't enough.
Yeah.
This 2p cut in national insurance.
Do you know what? Let's find out if it is enough.
Yeah.
A guy's been on the programme before. We say good morning to James Farley. James, a potato farmer. Let's see him. There he is there. There's the Vice Chairman of Cheltenham Football Club, Paul Bence. Hiya, Paul. And care support worker Michelle Chisholm there. Hello, Michelle. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. You're good. Michelle, how's everything? We're all full of expectation today about what we need, and you know, your colleagues from a business point of view, they'll have things specific to their businesses. What are you looking for?
Okay, so as you know, or you may not know, I'm a care support worker, and I'm pro-vehicle. The thing that I think is quite important would be a cut in fuel tax. Everybody is, or the majority of people are relying on vehicles these days. You know, they're the social heartbeat of our country, and yet we're constantly paying more and more and more at the petrol pump. What I'm finding is that people that are driving electric vehicles somehow seem to get away with not paying as much as people in petrol vehicles. And I just find it grossly unfair. London is kind of being managed in a different way. The motorist is being hit day on, day out. We've got the ULEZ fees. We've got low traffic neighbourhoods. I mean, Hounslow Council in itself took £12 million in a 2-year period using 2 streets. It's just a constant attack. Fair Fuel UK recently did a poll, and 64% of people said they wanted the fuel duty slashed. 97% of drivers said they wanted cuts. And we're looking at cuts of 20 pence per litre. We're not talking about 5 pence per litre. And just to go back on the topic you were just talking about, politicians are out of touch. We've got night czars in London. We've got walking and cycling commissioners in London that are on salaries in excess of £100,000. The night czar is working 2.5 days a week and on £117,000. What you've got to understand is that for a carer to earn that kind of salary, she would have to do 187 hours per week for 52 weeks of the year, which is physically impossible. So it's all very well people in high places earning big salaries saying, oh, well, you know, it's just another tax. It's not a big cut. But it is when you're only earning, you know, £12.50 an hour. And it's about time people started listening.
Okay,
I drive around 100 to 200 miles a week, and my petrol is going up and up and up
well,
on a daily basis.
Points, good fair point, Michelle.
Down.
We've got to let the other guys speak as well, but very good points.
James, let's go over to you, shall we? You're a potato farmer, aren't you? So you obviously work very hard. What would you like to see in the budget today?
Well, I'd like to see us having a fair playing field for food in the UK. We're up against a lot of imported food produced at lower cost. So what I'd like to see is an import tax on the food products from abroad. But then to use that money, don't let it get filtered into the system, but use that money to help incentivise renewable energy back within the agricultural industry. in order to help meet our carbon footprint. I think that's a big must. We need to be, we don't account for air miles when we're importing food. So that needs to be brought into the debate if we're going to have an open and honest debate. Another one that is also more sort of broad spectrum. Over the last 10 years, we've suffered 41% inflation. What we as a nation are suffering is the top tax bracket. It's not really moving in line with inflation in terms of what you earn. So the harder we're working nowadays and we're having to pay more in wages, these guys are getting hit harder with taxes compared to where we were 10 years ago. So I think we're all getting caught in that aspect, that we need to be moving this top tax bracket in line with inflation every year to keep it fair.
James, I can't totally see that football poster behind you. What is that poster you have? Who is that of? Who is it?
That's unfortunately Eamonn of the big man, and you never picked that up the last time, and I was disappointed.
What big man? Who is it? I can't see it. Who is it?
It's Viva Ronaldo.
Oh, excellent, the big man. Well, that's very good. You see, I would give you a tax rebate for that, mate. That's excellent. We'll then go to Paul, who is the chairman of Cheltenham FC. And I have to say, Paul, my brother-in-law goes for all your home games. He's a very good time. I remember having a conversation with Andy Gray once, and he said best time he ever had was when he played for Cheltenham FC. So there's a big responsibility on your shoulders for people's relaxation and indeed how they spend their money and if they think they get value for money. And is that hurting you at all, Paul, from a time when people feel their pay packet is squeezed and they have other things to do with it? Do you find that at the gate, or what's happening?
Our gates aren't too bad at the moment, although we haven't done very well at home the last couple of games. But look, I know you're a United fan, Eamonn, so if ever you want to come watch some proper football, then you're always very welcome here in Cheltenham, although you might be here for the races next week. But I was actually going to be talking about the construction industry today. That's sort of my main job, and that's what we spoke about last week on the show. So ultimately, we need stability and certainty for our industry. Right now, the UK construction's in recession. House building is 30% down, driven by a large increase in bank interest rates. So mortgage rates are higher. People have got less money to spend, as our colleagues have just spoken about just then. So although inflation's dropped, it's clear that interest rates are going to stay high for the rest of this year. So what the government must first do, in my view, is get hold of inflation, because this will in turn drive interest rates down, which then promotes investment in our lovely British economy. So the first one for me is on new house sales, which really drive our sector. So anything that could offer an immediate stimulus is really vital. So temporarily removing stamp duty, I mentioned that on my shopping list last week, which would be most welcome. We've already seen how effective this can be when, following the pandemic, a temporary reduction it really created a surge in house sales. I know earlier on the show you're talking about how the government has cut VAT. I think it's a really important one for us on the home improvement works to reverse the worrying drop in the private repair and maintenance activity. So putting more cash in householders' pockets to make their homes fit for the future.
Yeah, but there's taxes everywhere. There's invisible taxes all around. I mean, you look at your business, you look at building houses. I mean, VAT, for instance. I often think it's a vile tax. I think it's, you go and you buy something, you lay out your own money, and then you're hit again.
So, and I think, when you look at the VAT, this needs to be cut on all home improvement works, because that would, in turn, we can back local builders who employ tens of thousands of people in each community across the country. And there's some independent research which showed that if the government cut VAT on home improvements to 5% for a temporary 5-year period, then this would generate an economic boost of over 50 billion, unlock almost 350,000 jobs in the construction and wider economies. So households are more likely to install green measures if they're doing large home improvement projects. So cutting VAT alongside a green homes grant scheme would really boost our transition towards net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Well, listen, thanks for chipping in, the three of you. And not that any of us are going to make much of a difference, but we're just saying, Jeremy Hunt, this is what we need, this is what we want, these are the problems, and there could be some of the solutions there. James, Paul, Michelle, thank you so much. I wish we had more time, but we've got to say goodbye to you there. Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, and we want to hear from you as well. What would you like to hear in the budget at about 12:30 today? Do let us know, gbviews@gbnews.com. Do stay with us.
What are you going to hear from the sport? That's the question.
Who knows? Erling Haaland, everybody seems to be selling Erling Haaland off, but we'll hear from Erling, and I don't think there's too much to worry about if you're a Manchester City fan. And the World Cup will not be coming to England for at least 20 years. We'll talk about that as well.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Welcome back to Headliners. And Paul, we're going to get straight into Monday's mail for some good old-fashioned, traditional male breastfeeding.
Yeah. To answer the question, what is the latest woke hell, Josh? Row as hospitals say hormone-filled milk from trans women who were born male is just as good for a baby as the real thing. It's possible for men, if they pump themselves full of estrogen, to grow larger breast tissue, and they often do.
Or you just eat lots of burgers.
Exhibit A. And once you've done that, it is actually then possible to express or lactate a liquid. Okay. If to that liquid you then add another load of pills, medication, chemicals, whatever, that lactation juice can be fed to a baby.
We don't really... This is not for the sake of the baby. The baby has no benefits from this whatsoever. The studies are very weak on it. It's a bit worrying because, you know, when hospitals started indulging in homeopathy and having, the NHS had homeopathic hospitals, that was worrying because they're supposed to be a trusted authority. And before saying something like this, there should be an awful lot of study done.
I want to shame this hospital. This is
whether it's necessary.
University Hospital Sussex NHS Foundation Trust. That's who it is. And they have written one of the stupidest sentences I have read aloud in the 2 years that I've been privileged to do this show. It says, the term human milk is meant to be neutral and not gender biased.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Oh, my God, we're laughing at you.
I mean, and as someone says here, babies are not props. And that's the scary thing. And when we're not focusing primarily on the health of a baby.
No, but the feeling of a person doing it rather than... It's a bit of an odd way to go, isn't it? So...
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Brand new Sundays from 6 p.m. The Neil Oliver Show.
It's absolutely vital that people are given the opportunity to take part in the debate, to say the things that matter to them, to be challenged. A country is only really a shared dream. As long as enough people have a shared idea of what it is, then that country exists. What GB News does is give voices somewhere they can be heard.
The Neil Oliver Show. Sundays from 6 p.m. on GB News.
The Neil Oliver Show to look forward to, the Paul Coach Show right now with all the sport and Erling Haaland featuring over all the back pages, Paul.
Yes, Champions League tonight. They play Copenhagen. They're 3-1 up. They're not going to have any problem, I don't think, against Copenhagen. But Erling Haaland in a press conference, and of course everybody always looks for something to cling on to, and Erling Haaland, it's the talk whether Erling Haaland is going to stick around at Manchester City or not. So all the newspapers are saying, oh, looks like he's on his way. This is the quote. This is what he actually said yesterday.
I'm really happy, especially with the people that I'm surrounded with, the manager, the directors, the board. They are a group of amazing people, and I'm really happy if I say this now, it's probably going to be a massive headline tomorrow. You never know what the future brings. But again, I'm happy, and you can write this, but you can also have to write everything I said right before. I'm happy.
He knew exactly what was going to happen, and he's going, I'm happy, I like it here, I'm happy, don't know what the future brings, I'm happy. So everyone's going, don't know what the future brings, that means he must be leaving, he's not happy.
Yeah.
Well, it gives them all the back pages that they want, warning that he may leave. I mean, personally, I hope he does leave.
I know.
Because he's such a phenomenon.
He is a phenomenon, and he's just getting better and better and better. So anyway, eventually, he will leave. Eventually, he probably will go to Real Madrid, but in the near future, I doubt very much.
In tennis, Simona Halep is ready to return.
Yeah, 4-year doping ban she had. It's roxadustat that she was caught with, anti-anemia drug, a stimulant, and so basically it produces red blood cells in the body. I'm getting to be an expert in all this stuff. But anyway, Simona Halep, she got a 4-year ban.
She's 32 now.
She's 32. She's got a 4-year ban, and now it went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. I don't even know why they just don't start at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, because they always go there at the end. Just start with that one, then they can make the decision. So they've downgraded it to just a few months, which means that she can now play again. And it was one of those, it was in something that I ate, it was in something that I drank, it was a mistake. They've said fine, so she's safe to, ex-Wimbledon champion, so she's safe to play again.
But what does she do in that 4 years that she's banned?
But the thing is, she hadn't been banned. She hadn't been out for 4 years, because it only probably been about a year that she's actually served. But when it's gone to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, they've said, OK, we'll give you 6 months, but you've already done that anyway. So now she can go straight back.
OK.
Yeah.
Right, so we know what age she is. Other famous birthdays today.
Oh, yes. Would you like to do some of these? I've got, I know you like this. This is perfect for you, Eamonn, this one. Ellie, good luck as well. I'll give you some clues. Who is this one? Ex-Manchester United, I think Manchester United legend. I think we can say, who is this and how old is he today? There he is.
Well, that's Martin Buchan.
It is.
Great captain, great Scottish player, came from Aberdeen.
What year was that?
United, and I would say that's 1977.
Yes, and do you remember the quote from John Motson?
No.
Do you remember about the Buchan walking up the 39 steps?
Oh,
that was that, and he said about Martin Buchan and John Buchan.
Very clever, that. So how old would Martin Buchan be? I'd say Martin Buchan's got to be 75.
75?
Oh, I was going to say 77.
77. Were you doing the math?
I was. Did you see that? I was working that out.
On the money.
On the
75.
That was a good one.
Do you want to go again? Do you want to go again? One more. Double or nothing. Got a pair for you.
Yeah.
One of them no longer with us. The other one happily is. One sport down. Look at these. They're both born on the same day. Now, on the left, who else could it be? We've spoken about him before. The Fosbury Flop.
OK.
Dick Fosbury. Now, Dick Fosbury is no longer with us, died last year, but was born on the same day as Kiki D. There on the right.
Do you know, when I was growing up in Belfast, and that was number one, Don't Go Breaking My Heart, 1976 for 10 weeks or whatever it is, and I just thought her name was Kinky D.
Oh, Kinky D, did you really?
Because everybody just called her Kinky D.
Kinky D. That's a real name as well, Kinky D. But
I'd say Kinky D is...
How's Kinky?
I'd say she's 77.
77 for Kiki D? Dick and Kiki?
I think she's younger. I'm going to say 71.
Can I say, you have played a blinder today.
Seriously?
The money again, 77.
Have you got the answers? You've got the
Honestly,
answers in here.
no answers on here.
My 76 was my year. So you had 76 and 77. I mean, a child of the 70s. So you just put yourself, you were 10 or so at the time.
Good work.
And you work out with everybody else.
So the song from 76, the FA Cup from 77.
He's got an unfair advantage, I'd like to say.
I think so as well, so I will give you a point anyway.
There you go.
You know, the pink dungarees.
Yeah.
Hand on the shoulder. Yeah. Don't go breaking.
It was a great song.
It's a good song.
Good. Thanks, Paul. That was very entertaining, unusually.
Oh, thanks very much. I'm here for the sport, not for the entertainment, you know. That's not what I'm here for.
Well, anyway.
You just get that as an added extra, my friend.
That was a very welcome and an extra. Fraser and Anna, they'll be making the headlines after this.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and 1 or 2 showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. 1 or 2 showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine. And that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in 1 or 2 places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast. As we go through this evening, I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again, some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. And we'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales, could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. Every night from 11 p.m.
Mail on Sunday, and the University of Buckingham is calling out wokery at the University of Cambridge. So I guess the culture wars must be almost over then, Josh.
Almost, yeah. Cambridge University discriminating against rich, white, privileged, privately educated men, claims...
The worst
which
kind.
Is, yeah, basically me. Claims Vice-Chancellor of rival institution, which is launching a degree course on the rise of woke culture. Now, I 100% agree with this. I applied to get into Cambridge, and I didn't get in because I was too thick.
Oh, wow, so it wasn't the DEI mafia?
No, unfortunately, it was pre-DEI. So it's like a double insult now.
Were you one of those guys who was like had a B average? You know, you look like you should be an A because you act like an A.
I act like an A.
You act
I've
like
got
an
glasses.
A. Yeah,
they're fake. I don't even have to. They don't even have lenses.
Lewis, do you think that this is a little bit cynical? Because I looked up this University of Buckingham, and they opened in 1973, and their tagline on the internet is the home of the 2-year degree. They're trying to bring down Cambridge University with this.
Well, why not pick the biggest? I mean, that's why we should. We should be attacking the BBC 24/7 on this thing.
I thought we were.
We aren't. We don't mention it enough.
Listen.
What I found shocking about this story is Buckingham is the country's oldest private university, and was founded in 1976. Something is wrong there. What do you think? Was Oxford founded by the government? I don't think it was. Was Cambridge?
No, absolutely not. I looked up Cambridge was 1209.
Yes, exactly.
So you can
it
get...
wasn't a government
But this
grant.
is actually quite scary. They can do a course on the origins of the woke movement. I'm just saying, someone's going to have a degree, and our job is going to be under threat. They're going to know much more than us.
Never.
Welcome back. The time is 8:49. Going through what's making the news today is Deputy Editor of Spiked and the Deputy Political Editor of Mail on Sunday, Anna Mikhailova. I should say Fraser Myers is the Deputy Editor of Spiked. Good to see you both.
Could I ask you what you've made of that Mr. Darcy shirt, that Colin Firth shirt, which was all over the news bulletins yesterday, and It actually sold then, Anna, did it?
Yeah, for £20,000, well above estimates.
They were looking $7 grand or $8 grand for it.
I mean, listen, I'm not surprised. There are a lot of people who love TV memorabilia and film memorabilia, and that is a pretty iconic. If you can't actually get Colin Firth himself in your living room, then it's the next best thing.
The shirt is the next best thing. Who's spending 20 grand on that, though? Do we know who bought it?
No, I don't think at the moment.
No. I'd like to know more. More money than sense, I think.
Would you buy one of my shirts?
Probably not for £20,000, no.
Can't say blame
20p
you.
maybe.
So, Andy, is there anybody who you would...
And wet as well, isn't it? Because isn't that one of the...
Needs to probably be wet.
Chris, is there anyone who you would spend money on for part of their wardrobe?
I don't think so. I think it seems a bit creepy to me, to be honest.
Well, I could see me with Clint Eastwood or something, you know, buying a holster or something like that.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty cool,
or a John Wayne waistcoat or hat, you know. But
boxing gloves, Ali boxing gloves.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, or a sort of Bowie costume or a Michael Jackson costume or something like that. That would be cool.
Fraser, in the Telegraph, sachets of sauce and small bottles of shampoo will be banned from European restaurants and hotels after a deal was struck to ban single-use plastics in the EU. Now, I think this is interesting. I think it's very good. What are they going to replace them with? That's the thing, the shampoo in particular.
Well, this is what people have got to work out. You know, I think what will probably happen is you'll be deprived of your freebie shampoo and shower gel. That's usually, you know, perhaps hotels... A lot of hotels stopped doing that during COVID for some reason. I'm not sure why it was a COVID risk to do it, but people...
I think it's a nice, convenient, money-saving risk that was packaged up as a COVID risk. I think most hotels have already... A lot of them have already moved to having those large bottles that you crucially can't take as a memento, whereas the small ones are obviously the ones that...
They're the ones we like.
People like.
Sorry?
I think it's a real shame.
Yeah.
I was in a hotel at the weekend, and that was the last thing I did, as many people do before you leave.
As many people do?
Take the minis.
Take the minis.
What they're for.
They're a souvenir, aren't they, of a holiday?
And I got home last night, and I put them all out, and I felt very proud of myself.
Well, I'll tell you what's very irritating. In the shower, and you reach for the shampoo, right? And you take the shampoo and whatever, and you open it, and then it's got the silver lid little thing that you then can only get off from where you try with your nails.
Your teeth.
So it's your teeth. You then have to use your teeth to bite it off and get it. And I don't know why it's sealed at the top anyway, but I'll not miss that.
Get the delicious taste of shampoo.
Delicious taste of shampoo. Right, let's talk about tax cuts. Fraser, what have you got to say on those?
Well, let's see what Jeremy Hunt pulls out later today. But if the 2p tax cut is all they've got, then the Tories are finished. Why don't they just call the election now? I think everyone is quite bored of waiting.
I like that they had the photo shoot, because traditionally Number 11 always puts out a photo shoot, and the photo shoot they put out was Jeremy Hunt with Rishi Sunak, you know, action talk, discussing the budget, right in front of a picture of Nigel Lawson. And, of course, they started the year comparing themselves. Hunt compared himself to Nigel Lawson, promising big tax cuts, and now that looks a little bit unfortunate.
Anna, do you think there's going to be more to come at 12:30, or do you think this is the best that the Tories have got, the 2p?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's a very good question. Sure. There should be more to come. And I think, as some of your experts today have said, there are ways that the Treasury can find that, you know, hidden penny down the back of the sofa. The question is, are they going to do that? If this is it, then I think they're going to be in real trouble.
And never underestimate the dullness of Jeremy Hunt, you know. It's just a man of zero political vision, of no excitement. He's a spreadsheet chancellor, essentially.
Well, he's very active. He's outdone 17 miles this morning.
I did see a picture of him running with his dog. I don't know how that prepares people for the budget. I mean, back in the day, people used to have a drink during the budget. Do you remember Ken Clarke would have a whiskey? I think he was the last chancellor to have a whiskey while delivering the budget. I don't think... we could do with some characters like that back, rather than, the failed bank manager, Jeremy Hunt.
Fritz, what do you make of this racial inclusion test? We started to talk about this yesterday. The clothing brand North Face, you get a 20% discount if you undergo their racial inclusion course.
Yeah, so it's incredible, actually. You know, it's a 20% discount if you're woke, pretty much. You have to do this course. You have to choose the correct answers. So you have to hold the correct views on believing that, you know, white privilege is a stain on society. You have to agree that you should be essentially that the great outdoors. This is a very odd idea that comes up time and again now, that the outdoors is racist.
Why?
Because some people, you know, there are fewer black people visit the countryside on average than white people.
So what do you call it, the black doors then?
I mean, really, this is just a product of the fact that, you know, ethnic minorities are more likely to live in cities. It's not because ethnic minorities are unwelcome.
Sorry, I just don't get... You've lost me there. I don't understand why the term outdoors is racist.
Oh, no, it's not the term outdoors. It's even weirder than that. It's actually the phenomenon of the outdoors. The
experience of the outdoors.
The experience of going outside. You know, you have to be privileged to go outdoors. Yes. Yeah. You have to be white to go outdoors. It's absolutely
Does
bonkers.
no one ever say that you are white and therefore that is your experience and it would be racist to take that away from you?
I don't think so. I don't think these things apply the other way, in my experience. But I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, people are so sick of, you know, wokeness everywhere, and now it's being, you know, you're supposed to be a customer, and essentially you're being re-educated by these brands.
There are other brands. That's the thing. The thing is, Anna, that, you know, people who'll undergo this, a lot of them will totally say, well, there's not a prejudiced bone in my body, I'm not interested in all that sort of thing, and then they will be made to feel quite bad, really, at the end.
Well, I think it's an odd choice for a brand because they're going to fall between both patronising existing customers and possibly turning them away, and then effectively, I think this has been presented by the company as a way of, oh, you know, it's an incentive if you want to educate yourself. But if you want to educate yourself about race, you should be doing it properly, not for a 20% discount at some minor, you know, outdoorsy brand.
Yeah.
It feels disingenuous. It feels like almost they're trying to profit from the cost of living crisis by getting a bit of free press.
I think, you know, yeah, read The Souls of Black Folk by Du Bois or something like that. Read Martin Luther King's speeches. Don't do a quiz on behalf of a corporation if you want to, you know, learn something about anti-racism. It's absolutely bizarre.
Folks, got to leave it there. Thank you for your comments and your entertainment throughout the morning. Anna and Fraser, thank you both
very much.
Very much indeed.
Stay with us, because very soon we're going to be heading up to Whitehaven, where Bev Turner is camped out today. She's going to be wanting to hear what you want to hear from the budget. That'll be next.
We're springing into spring and giving you the chance to win the seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won, plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package to enjoy, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. It's budget day. It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 6th of March.
Very nice to see you, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. We're on television, we're on radio, we're online, and we're there via your device. You just say, it's Eamonn and Ellie, GB News Breakfast, play, and we'll be there.
Budget day is finally here. Jeremy Hunt looks to win over voters as speculation mounts over when the Prime Minister might call the election. We've quizzed the government and Labour this morning.
And they've had 21 plans for growth over the years. This is the 22nd, and where are we? We're in the middle of Rishi's recession, so I'm not quite sure if you can take the Chancellor's word for it.
So what you're seeing now is a path to lower taxes, to being able to hand some of that money back to taxpayers.
The Chancellor will be up on his hind legs at the Commons dispatch box at 12:30. We know some tax cuts are coming. But can he pull another rabbit out of his budget hat? Or is the rabbit dead?
Yes. Yes, Jeremy Hunt has dotted the I's and crossed the T's on his spring budget. But will his party be happy with what he's done? Find out more with me very soon.
Big wins for Donald Trump and Joe Biden in their Super Tuesday election contests, paving the way for an election rematch later this year.
Our poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
West is best for sunshine today, and that's where we'll see the top temperatures. Further east, a lot of cloud and on the chilly side. Join me later for a full weather forecast.
Loads of you getting in touch today on the budget. We're expecting to hear from the Chancellor at 12:30 today. Caroline's been in touch saying she loved the People's panel on the budget. We had that about half an hour ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Said it demonstrates the general public have intelligent points of view based on business and life experiences. GB News is great at representing this, and I loved the breakfast show. Well, that is what we aim to do, Caroline, so really glad you enjoyed that.
What's the government planning to do or aiming to do? Jeff says this should reduce VAT to 12%. 5 present, along with business rates, get people spending again and put confidence for business to start investing. You've been very, very good just with your opinions and your views on everything today. So thank you very much indeed for getting in touch. gbviews@gbnews.com. We've got plenty to come in the next half hour.
Yes, because the big day is finally here. A last throw of the dice, if you will, for Chancellor Jeremy Hunt as he's set to deliver his spring budget later today.
On the agenda, 2p cut to national insurance, possible tax cuts, fuel duty frozen and possible changes to nom-dom status.
And, of course, it's an election year, as the Chancellor alluded to over the weekend. It will be an election budget. So, will it be enough to turn things around for the Conservatives?
Well, let's hear from our news and economics and business editor and everything else that goes along with that. Liam Halligan, what do you think, Liam?
I must say I agree completely with Caroline. It's great we get the views of ordinary viewers and listeners on, and they're always so much more informed and more sophisticated than the vast majority of the media gives them credit for. You know, you run a small business, you make payroll, you employ people from your kitchen table, as thousands, tens of thousands of Brits do. You know a lot about business and economics, and we need to take the views of our viewers and listeners seriously. It may not be a pre-election budget because I still think the election will be in October or November. I still think there's going to be another, quote, fiscal event in the autumn before that. I think the Tories want to get more tax cuts in. They're also hoping that the Bank of England will start lowering interest rates maybe 2 or 3 times before that election, creating some kind of feel-good factor. And that's what the Chancellor fresh from his long, manly run this morning, is trying to do. He's trying to create a feel-good factor in the Commons, but it's very, very difficult because he hasn't got much fiscal bandwidth to play with. There's not much money in the coffers. He hasn't really got a tiger in his budget tank. Let's have a look at the measures that we think he will implement today. Well, we know there's going to be a 2p cut in the headline rate of national insurance. It already fell from 12p in the pound to 10p in the pound in January. So we've seen that in January pay packets. Most of us haven't been paid for February yet. We'll see it again in February. It's set to fall to 8% in April after today's announcements. Those two reductions combined, the average worker on the average wage, 900 quid a year, better off in their take-home pay, not to be sniffed at. It's cheaper than cutting income tax, national insurance. Why is that, Ellie and Eamonn? That's because pensioners pay income tax on their pensions, landlords pay income tax on their rental income, but only workers pay national insurance. So a national insurance cut is cheaper for the Chancellor. Also, a national insurance cut will apply in Scotland, as well as England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and the Tories want to be seen to be doing stuff north of the border. The Scottish Government, of course, decides income tax in Scotland. What else might be in the budget? We know that fuel duty is going to be frozen at just under 53p a litre for petrol or diesel. That's been frozen for many years. A Chancellor's not going to increase that in an election year. And then the change to that non-dom tax status that you just mentioned, Eamonn. What is non-dom anyway? Non-doms are the few tens of thousands of wealthy foreigners who live in the UK. They pay very little tax on their overseas investments, their overseas incomes here in the UK. Labour have talked a lot about tightening up that regime, making those non-doms pay more. We want to attract them to the UK so they spend money, but Labour wants them to pay more. It seems that the Tories now want them to pay more as well.
You could be talking about actors and footballers.
The Premier League are concerned about changes to non-dom status. Another measure that we're going to see today, again to try and pay for that headline tax cut, is I think there'll be higher air duty on business class airfares. That could raise a few billion quid. And on the other side of the ledger, there could be more help for first-time buyers, those young families trying to own their own home. So few of them do compared to my generation.
So what are you thinking there, Liam? Do you think 99% mortgages, or are we talking about stamp duty?
I personally think 99% mortgages would be a complete disaster, because all they would do, they'd jack up demand, they'd jack up prices, with doing nothing to address the real issue, which is the supply of housing.
Lack of it.
It's all about the lack of supply, the slow growth of house building in this country. It's a major, major problem. If there is help for first-time buyers, I think it will be, as you say, Ellie, on stamp duty, lowering stamp duty more for first-time buyers. They already get favourable treatment. And maybe, lowering stamp duty across the board to try and get the housing market going. Again, they are demand-side policies, juicing up, jacking up demand for a fixed supply. It can only lead to higher prices.
Liam, appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed for your insight and your analysis. We go to Westminster, political correspondent Olivia Utley with a political take on this. Olivia, good morning.
Good morning. Yes, Eamonn, I'm going to be sitting in the chamber today, monitoring very closely what Conservative MPs in particular make of this budget. Jeremy Hunt is going to cut national insurance by 2p, but he is not going to cut income tax, as we've heard. That income tax cut was a lot more popular with Conservative MPs than the national insurance cut, because it was seen as more radically tax cutting and it would benefit pensioners. And as we know, pensioners are very reliable voters. They go out to the polling booth on election day. The fact that Jeremy Hunt has decided, it sounds of his own accord, it sounds as though Rishi Sunak was pushing pressure on him to do that income tax cut and Jeremy Hunt refused. That is likely to go down pretty badly with Conservative MPs, particularly those on the right of the party. I think we should also watch out for the reaction to the fact that Jeremy Hunt looks very unlikely to increase the income tax threshold. As lots of Conservative MPs have pointed out to me, whatever you do, fiddling around the edges, tweaking with 1p to income tax here, 2p to national insurance there. If you don't change those income tax thresholds, which have now been frozen for years against a backdrop of inflation rising very, very quickly indeed, then everyone will be worse off. Even if you are cutting taxes here and there a little bit, they will be worse off than they would have been otherwise. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how Conservative MPs react to that this afternoon. I've spoken to MPs on the right of the party who say that if Jeremy Hunt doesn't do that, then he is finished, and it looks like he's not going to do it. So I think we can expect quite a lot of consternation from the Conservative Party this afternoon.
Thank you, much appreciated. Got to leave it there. One for your TV planner later this evening here on GB News. We're going to bring you live by satellite to Whitehaven, and Whitehaven is in Cumbria. It's near Cumberland. And tonight from there will be a special edition of Britain's Newsroom.
Yeah, well, very quickly, actually, I think in about 20 minutes' time. So Bev Turner is there for us. She will want to hear your thoughts on the budget. She'll be speaking to the people in Whitehaven. Good morning to you, Bev.
That's right. Very good morning to you. We are in Whitehaven this morning. Michelle Dewberry and Nigel Farage will be doing their shows live from here with a live local audience this evening from 6. And I'm going to be here until midday. I'm going to be talking to cafe owners, publicans, restaurant owners, local business owners, fishermen, to see what they need in the budget today. The weather is glorious. It is a beautiful day, but does that match the mood of this town? It's 40 years, of course, since the miners' strikes, and this town's prosperity was built on coal mines. In the 18th century, it was the second busiest port to London, would you believe? Of course, the coal mines are all gone. However, this town is going to get the first new coal mine in 30 years. That was announced in 2022 by Michael Gove. So what will that mean for the local community here? Will it be enough? Transport is a big issue here as well. It's very difficult to get here on train. The Lake District, as you say, Eamonn, is just down the road. It is one of the most beautiful parts of our country. But how do the local people here feel about the money in their pocket, and will today's spring budget give them any relief?
Well, indeed, indeed. It's a great privilege, Beverly, to see it and to learn something about Whitehaven. And when you mentioned the news story about the mines, we thought, yes, of course, that was a lot of controversy about those being reopened. But then you've got to ask, without that employment, what do those people do? Does Whitehaven die without that?
Well, correct. Well, energy is a big issue here, Eamonn, because most of the industry in this area is centred around the Sellafield nuclear power station. And the new coal mine that they'll get here is actually coking coal. It's going to be from underneath the sea, and it's going to be for steel production as opposed to power generation. The people that I've met and spoken to so far in the last 24 hours of being here feel a bit disillusioned, to be completely honest, with politics. There's a lot of apathy about whether they would even vote in the next general election. So it'll be interesting to find out why. Why do people here feel so disempowered? It's got more than 170 listed buildings because of all its investment in the Georgian era. The architecture here is beautiful, but of course, like so many high streets, many of those offices are empty. The restaurants are boarded up. The cafes are closed down. Like many high streets, it looks very, very bleak. So let's hope we can work out today what is going on here for the people of Whitehaven and what do they need from the government.
Well, have a good show, Beverly. We look forward to watching that from 9:30 today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks absolutely beautiful there, doesn't it? Beautiful part in Whitehaven. And if you're in Whitehaven, do go down and see Beverly Turner. Let her know what you think and what you'd like to hear from the Chancellor today at 12:30. Now, talking of money, would you like to win some in our Great British Giveaway? Well, there's a garden gadget package, the shopping spree. There's also £12,345 in cash. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So, here's how you could be in to win.
We have a ton of top prizes to be won in our spring giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Whoever wins it next is going to be as happy as I was, and they're going to get even more money this time round, so why wouldn't you go in the draw?
For your chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GB GB Win to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
Stuff. We wish you all the best with that. Still to come, you're going to hear more about what you would want to hear from today's budget, OK? Getting out and about, talking to more people live here at Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News. Every Wednesday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions when Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer go head-to-head in the House of Commons.
We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
So after his mad dash to see his father last week, Prince Harry predictably went on TV to talk about it. He gave his first interview to Good Morning America, whilst apparently being filmed by a cruise that were doing a documentary on the Invictus Games. He didn't disclose his father's diagnosis, but frankly, even the fact that he was on TV talking about it was concerning. No wonder they're keeping him at arm's length. This is what he said.
How did you get the news that the king was ill?
I spoke to him.
And what did you do next?
I jumped on a plane and went to go and see him as soon as I could.
How was that visit for you emotionally?
Look, I love my family. The fact that I was able to get on a plane and go and see him and spend any time with him, I'm grateful for that.
An illness in the family can have a galvanizing or sort of reunifying effect for a family.
Absolutely.
Is that possible in this case?
Yeah, I'm sure. Throughout all these families, I see it on a day-to-day basis. The strength of the family unit coming together.
He also said that he loves his family, but then he said that he had his own family in America. So which family does he love? The late Queen's last few years of life were marred with accusations of racism, which Harry later backtracked on, claiming that they hadn't actually used the word, so inadvertently admitting to gaslighting us all. But the Sussex's stock is falling in the States, and the only thing that makes them interesting is their proximity to the royal family. And now the king is ill, Harry has even offered to muck in and take on official duties to help his father. Look, I want to see reconciliation and love and joy, but I'm afraid Meghan has yet to even speak to her father as far as we know, and Harry didn't apparently even reach out to his brother. Whilst his dad might fall for it, I doubt William will be as soft. Good luck with that, Harry.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
We've been asking you all morning what you would like to hear from the budget. At about 12:30, what would you like to hear from the Chancellor? Jen has been in touch on Instagram saying income tax cut. It's going to be much more fair for everyone. National insurance cut is not fair for everyone because, of course, it doesn't affect pensioners. She says, I won't be voting Conservative ever again. But then I look at the current leader of the Labour Party and I can't say I'll vote for them either. I'm totally disgusted with all of them.
OK, let's go out and about. Let's get more opinions now. GB News Northwest Midlands reporter Jack Carson. Let's go. And we've got also News Scotland reporter there. Yeah, OK. Tony Maguire is there as well. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning to you, Eamonn. I'm here in Leamington Spa with Mary Carmen Fitness, a small business owner here in the area. Mary, thank you for joining us here on the channel this morning. Just kind of tell us then, with this budget today, you know, what is business like at the moment? What's it like running a small business?
Yeah, I think it's really hard, particularly being a woman in business, and I've got 3 small children. As we spoke about earlier, you know, if you want to start your own business, there's not really much support in terms of funding, you know, how to get that investment to get the business off the ground. You know, obviously with being a mother as well, juggling 3 children, there's loads to be talked around childcare. You know, it's expensive. Just trying to juggle through that as well, a cost of living. There's so much stress at the moment.
And obviously, the idea that there might well be a 2% cut in national insurance, a further 2% cut. So there's already been one that came into effect in January. Did you notice much of an impact in your life after that previous one? Do you think it's a good idea to go further on that national insurance cut?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see any difference. You know, if they do a further 2%, then, you know, great. But I think what would make more of a difference would be to change the tax brackets. I think that would have a much greater impact.
Okay, and is there anything else particularly that you might be looking for from the budget today from Mr Hunt?
Well, I used to be a nurse. I worked at the Children's Hospital in Birmingham for a while, and I'm extremely passionate about women's health. I think there needs to be more provisions for women, particularly in that pregnancy and postpartum period. So many of my clients tell me all the time they don't get the support they need from the healthcare professionals, and I know Jeremy Hunt is also talking around AI, using that for to reduce waiting times. I think AI is great for certain areas, but I think we need to be really careful with how we're using technology to, you know, support people with their healthcare. You know, there could be room for missing really important things.
Yeah, I mean, what did you notice when you worked in the NHS? Is it seriously that maybe there needs to be reform from your experience?
Sorry, what was that?
About reforming the NHS. Is that what you've seen from your experience?
Yeah, I think there needs to be more money spent, but I think it comes from top level. You know, the nurses and doctors, I've got huge respect for them. They do a great job. It's just the powers above, for whatever reason, they're not spending the money in the areas that are needed, and it's just overstretched. I mean, we've got such a population now that live a lot older. There needs to be more money, or something needs to change, because so many things are being missed. You know, and I work with mums in that pregnancy postpartum period, and I'm hearing all the time they're not getting the support they need. Right. And then that's just even more devastating, you know. Well,
thank you very much for those perspectives. Of course, it's really key, of course, as the Chancellor gets ready to deliver that budget, to hear from people like Mary Carmen on what's important.
Yeah, Jack, really good to hear Mary's thoughts on that. Thank you for bringing that to us. Let's go over to Tony Maguire now, our reporter who's in Edinburgh this morning. Good to see you, Tony. And what are people there wanting to hear from the budget later on today?
Good morning. Yes, indeed, I'm in Portobello in Edinburgh, and up here in Scotland there's no shortage of sectors that are really going to be sitting on the edge of their seat listening to Jeremy Hunt later on this afternoon, but there's one more than most which really needs a helping hand, and that of course is hospitality. Now, hospitality up here in Scotland makes up around 8% of the workforce and accounts for around 9% of Scottish businesses. However, a growing majority of Scottish leaders are now extremely concerned that how their businesses will fare over the next 12 months or so. Now, I spoke to the tip of the spear championing the interests and desires of Scottish hospitality sector, UK Hospitality Scotland Chief Executive Leon Thompson, the Executive Director Leon Thompson, and he gave his wish list, as it were, for Jeremy Hunt's speech later on this afternoon.
We have one of the highest rates of VAT in Europe at 20%. We believe that reducing VAT to at least 12.5% would make a significant difference to our businesses and their ability to operate in a sustainable way. That would help them manage their costs. We know that when VAT was reduced during COVID, 70% of businesses passed that saving on to their customers. So this is a win-win for business and for our customers if the Chancellor cuts VAT today.
Now, you may think, of course, there must be some other reason, and you, of course, would be right. You see, the hospitality sector up here is somewhat caught between a rock and a hard place. It's in a unique position to benefit from both budgets in Scotland and Westminster. However, business rates, which they have been asking repeatedly for more benefits from the Scottish Government, has still not materialised or even drawn a par with the English 75% rate relief. So indeed, Scottish businesses today are going to be looking for Jeremy Hunt.
Thank you very much, Tony Maguire, there for us in Edinburgh.
And thank you very much for watching today. We'll see you again sometime soon. On this budget day, here's the weather.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your weather update for the day from the Met Office for GB News. Bit of fog and frost in the south and west this morning. That should clear, and then much of the west will be fine and bright. But in the east, quite a lot of cloud again. Outbreaks of light rain for northeast England, eastern Scotland, and one or two showers breaking out over the East Midlands and southeast England through the day. One or two showers creeping into Cornwall as well. But much of the west, southwest England, Wales, Northern Ireland, western Scotland having a fine day with some spring sunshine. And that will lift the temperatures 12, maybe 13 in one or two places. Where it stays cloudy in the east, we're struggling a bit again, only single digits on that east coast and feeling colder with the breeze over the far northeast. As we go through this evening, I think we'll see the cloud breaking up a little bit more, any rain tending to fizzle out. So for most it's a dry evening and then a dry and a clear night. That will allow the cloud to come back into the east, some mist and fog patches, and again, some patchy frost is likely in rural spots. Most towns and cities just about staying above freezing. As for Thursday, well, again, for many, it'll be dry and bright. Starting off a bit misty and murky with some low cloud. Eastern areas likely to stay fairly cloudy through the day. We'll see a few more showers on Thursday, I suspect. Parts of southern England, the Midlands, Wales. Could see some heavy showers on Thursday. They'll be scattered about, but they could be on the heavy side. Many places elsewhere, again, dry, and in the sunny spells, temperatures getting up to 12 or 13.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Brand new Sundays from 6 p.m. The Neil Oliver Show.
It's absolutely vital that people are given the opportunity to take part in the debate, to say the things that matter to them, to be challenged. A country is only really a shared dream. As long as enough people have a shared idea of what it is, then that country exists. What GB News does is give voices somewhere they can be heard.
The Neil Oliver Show. Sundays from 6 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Well, we've been a constitutional monarchy since the late 17th century, and of course part of that deal is that the monarch, or indeed the close immediate royal family, should not interfere with politics that in any way could be seen to affect individual parties. Now, perhaps one of the most classic cases in the 20th century was Edward VIII, who during his brief reign went down to Merthyr Tydfil in South Wales, met thousands of people who'd lost their jobs in the steel industry. In fact, he shook so many hands in the end He had to change and shake with his left hand, and he said something must be done to get these people jobs. It was taken as a direct assault on the Conservative government of the day. And we could go on to Edward Heath, as many saw it, using the Queen to get us to join the common market, and things the Queen said during the referendum on Scottish separation. And we could, of course, talk about King Charles, who as Prince of Wales endlessly talked about climate change and net zero. But the intervention overnight from Prince William, I think, is the most direct political piece of interference that has international and global implications that I almost think we've ever seen. Prince William is saying to Israel, stop what you're doing. Some will see that as being given a free pass to Hamas. Many young people will say, hooray, he's doing the right thing. But whether he's doing the right thing or not, has he gone just too far with this? Should our future king intervene in this way? I don't believe that he should. I think he's making a very big mistake.
Very good morning. It is Wednesday, the 6th of March. It is Spring Budget Day. I'm here in Whitehaven, in Cumbria. Andrew is in Westminster.
Budget day is here and the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is expected to announce, well, I think he is going to announce a 2p cut to national insurance. Our business and economics editor Liam Halligan, he's got the latest.
It is Budget day. The Chancellor will be up on his hind legs at the Commons dispatch box at 12:30. We know some tax cuts are coming. Will they be enough? And can the Chancellor pull a rabbit out of his budget hat, or is the rabbit dead?
Big wins for Donald Trump and Joe Biden in their Super Tuesday election contest. It looks almost certain that the pair will go head-to-head again in November. Let's hear it from that man Trump.
Poll numbers are so much higher than Joe Biden's. He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
Goldsmith guns for Meghan. The Princess of Wales' uncle tells Big Brother housemates that Meghan Markle creates drama to rewrite history. Just have a listen.
When they were a threesome, so Kate, William and Harry, they look really comfortable together, loved, and then suddenly there's an extra dynamic that comes in, puts a stick in the spokes and creates so much drama that I don't genuinely think was there.
Well, the weather here is glorious in Cumbria. I'm going to find out whether it matches the mood of this town on Spring Budget Day. What do people here need to hear from the Chancellor today? Let us know your thoughts as well. gbviews@gbnews.com is the email address, as always. Lots more to come between now and midday. First, though, the very latest news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Bev, thank you. The top stories from the GB Newsroom. A 2 pence in the pound cut to national insurance looks set to be the focus of the government's budget. Ministers are arriving in Westminster ahead of the Chancellor's statement later today. The expected changes could save the average worker £450 a year, adding up to £900 when combined with last year's changes. But Jeremy Hunt may have trouble convincing his critics, with experts warning that it won't be enough to stop the